Kim?
Sure. Do you want to move over? Ron did send an email stating he'd be 10 minutes late.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting of Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. The first thing on the agenda is a public hearing.
Read it.
Yep.
Public hearing at 6:30 p.m. Site plan application Rockamora Acquisitions LLC, proposing 25 two-story, two-bedroom townhouse style apartments, with 8 apartments being set aside and designated as affordable in accordance with the Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-30G, along with associated site improvements for property located at 1093 New Britain Avenue, Rocky Hill, in an R20 residential zone, zoning district ID-15-008.
Just to point out, Commissioner Robbins, who's a regular member, is in traffic, so he'll be here in a couple minutes. So he will be sitting when he arrives. So the sitting commissioners are Commissioner Hussey, Commissioner Glico, myself, Commissioner Morhurst, and Commissioner Robbins when he shows up.
Pay attention. She can start.
She can start, but Commissioner Robbins will be sitting. Sorry. What are you going to do?
Can I proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Nice to see you all again. For the record, my name's Andrea Gomes. I'm an attorney at Hinckley Allen at 20 Church Street in Hartford, here tonight on behalf of the applicant. With me tonight, we have Max Rockamora, and a representative of the applicant, Jim Cassidy, our consulting civil engineer from Hallisey, Pearson and Cassidy Engineering Associates, and Kermit Hua from KWH Enterprise LLC, our consulting traffic engineer. A few procedural housekeeping matters before we get into the substance of our presentation. As the Commission knows, we submitted the application in early July, on July 3rd. It consisted of our tabbed package, a separately tabbed package of the Affordable Housing Needs Memorandum, stormwater report, and a plan set. The Commission should have copies of all of that. Public notice for tonight's hearing was properly completed. A big thank you to Ms. Ricci for doing that, taking care of the newspaper publication. We took care of the mailing and the sign posted on site, and proof of compliance with those notice requirements was submitted to staff in advance of tonight's hearing. As the Commission will see in just a moment, a small portion of the site is actually located over the town line in the town of Berlin. So the staff did submit notification to the town that the application was proceeding. We, as the applicant, also submitted courtesy notification to the Berlin town planner with a link to all of our application materials. As far as I'm aware, we have not received any comments from the town of Berlin, but they have properly been notified. Tonight, as the Commission can see, we do have a PowerPoint presentation we'll be using. We submitted copies to staff in advance. The Commission has hard copies, and we have submitted an electronic version to staff as well. So with that, we will dive right in, starting with the subject property. 1093 New Britain Avenue is about 3.9 acres on the Rocky Hill Berlin border, and it's at the intersection of New Britain Ave and Covey Road. Commission will see in just a moment. It's a fairly unusually shaped parcel. It's owned by an affiliate of the applicant and has been owned since the very end of 2022. It's located in the R20 district, where cluster housing is allowed via special permit and site plan approval. There's a number of uses in the area. We have Cold Spring Brook Farm over to the west. We have single-family homes to the south and the east. And then we have a few multifamily communities, Orchard Ridge to the north, and Stonebridge Apartments, excuse me, to the southeast. Currently on site, and we'll come to a photo of this just shortly, there is a barn and a house on site, which are in poor condition and have been in poor condition for quite some time prior to our ownership. As I mentioned, an unusually shaped parcel, as you can see from the yellow outline here. This is just a close-up view, aerial view of the site. And here we have a street view. It's, of course, that tree is blocking the area, but you can see what the site looks like today from the street, both New Britain Ave to the left and then Kobe Road over to the right. This is our existing conditions plan. The commission can see at the rear of the site there is a water course known as Little Brook, as well as associated wetlands to the rear or the north of the site. No work is being proposed within those areas or within the upland review area, so no wetlands permit was required to move forward with tonight's application, and staff has confirmed that in the staff memoranda that were submitted into the record. So what the applicant is proposing to construct on site, and I'll stop for a moment and actually talk about the applicant. The applicant is a local family-run business with deep ties to Rocky Hill and over 35 years of experience in the development world and in the Rocky Hill community specifically. You'll hear from Max in just a moment on that, but I think that's important to keep in mind that you have a local developer invested in the community. And what they are proposing to do is to demolish the existing structures on site and construct a multifamily community, 25 two-bedroom townhomes in 3 separate buildings, which you can see on site here. There will be a single driveway coming off of Kobe Road, parking in between the buildings, centralized parking in between the buildings. And I will note that prior to our submission of the application, the applicant met with the fire marshal and confirmed that this site configuration was appropriate for emergency access purposes, and we were told by the fire marshal that it was appropriate and safe, which is important here. The fire marshal did ask that the fire hydrant be relocated in front of the rear building, which has been reflected on the plan. So the one comment we have received to date from the fire marshal has been incorporated into the plan set. The buildings will be fully code compliant, building code, fire safety code, fire prevention code, but of course the building official will confirm all of that down the line prior to the issuance of a building permit. And here is just a close-up of that site plan I was just speaking of. I am certainly not an architect here, but I will just point out that we do have architectural drawings and floor plans at tab 5 of your July 3rd package. The applicant did evaluate different configurations for a multifamily community on site and ultimately settled on the townhome style proposed here. The design reflects the residential nature of the use and the surrounding neighborhood. You have porches at the front, decks at the rear, and that's really to encourage the development of an actual community, a neighborhood feel and culture on site. So, and here is a rendered view of what the townhomes will look like. So the application, as the commission knows, has been filed under Connecticut General Statutes 830G, Connecticut's Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals Act, and it's been filed as a set-aside development, which means that 8 of the 25 units will be formally rent restricted for 40 years. What 830G does is it provides that if the proposed residential development will preserve 30% of its units, again here 8 units, for 40 years for households earning approximately $66,000 to $88,000 annually, then the Zoning Commission can only deny the application if it receives evidence at the hearing of a public health and safety concern that cannot be addressed by reasonable changes to the plan and which outweighs the need for affordable housing. And that is the only lens that we have here for which the Commission can evaluate the application. The case law is very clear that compliance with the zoning regulations themselves are not a valid basis for denial of an 830G application. It really comes down to public health and safety. And of course, we're talking about affordable housing need here in Rocky Hill and in the greater region. The Commission has a very thick package from us on affordable housing need in town and in the region, but just a few statistics from that, if you will. 4.68% of Rocky Hill's housing stock, which is about 9,300 units, is affordable. Only 4.68%. And as the Commission knows, all you need to do is pull up any news article or news station, news outlet, and you will see that rents are really rising everywhere. There's a nationwide housing shortage and a housing crisis. The 2015 Rocky Hill Plan of Conservation and Development, as well as the 2022 Affordable Housing Plan, recognize this need for affordable housing, and this proposal helps implement those goals. But we'll come back to that again at the end of the presentation. Before I hand it over to Max and then Jim and Kermit to touch on their respective areas, I did want to note we did receive staff comments, as I alluded to earlier. We did not receive those comments until this past Friday, so we scrambled as quickly as we could to provide the commission with written responses to those comments, as well as plan revisions incorporating staff requests. We submitted those both electronically and in hard copy to town staff today. We'll be going through those changes through the presentation today, but generally speaking, there really were no major issues. You had a couple of what I'll call administrative requests, tweaking notes on the plan and things like that. And we have accepted the suggestions made by staff, which really were included a do not block box at the site driveway, which again you'll hear about shortly, and accompanying signage to ensure that there's no blocking the site driveway on Kobe Road, and the inclusion of silt fence in certain areas on site to ensure that we're providing additional soil erosion and sediment control measures during construction. Relevantly, town staff confirmed, again, as I mentioned earlier, that a wetlands permit is not necessary here, and it also confirmed that a DOT encroachment permit would be required, and we confirmed that in our responses, and that's relevant here for the commission to know because that's another set of eyes at the state level looking at the plan from the transportation angle. And lastly, Ms. Ricci did submit our proposed application to CROG. It was not a required referral, and the commission has that email confirming that it was not a required referral. But Mr. Knowlton from CROG did take the time to state, and this is a quote, "I personally would like to commend you and the town of Rocky Hill for this work in trying to provide a choice in housing for persons of all backgrounds and ages. Great work." So I think it's relevant. He didn't have to say anything other than it's not a required referral, but he took it a step further and commended the town and the applicant for trying to provide additional housing. So with that, I will ask Max to come up and just speak for a few moments. As I mentioned, the commission will then hear from Jim on the civil engineering side of things and Kermit on traffic, and then I will probably step up. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Max Rockmore, and I'm here representing Rockmore Acquisitions, LLC. First, I want to thank the Commission for their consideration, along with those who have shared their thoughts and concerns. Rocky Hill is home to numerous businesses. The employees of these businesses, including our own town employees, need affordable housing. It's important that our teachers, first responders, and skilled workers have the chance to live within the community. This not only benefits our local establishments where they will shop and dine, but by shortening their commutes, we are also reducing emissions. Workforce housing offers real opportunities. It can act as a stepping stone to owning a home here one day. Our proposal reflects this by offering 8 townhouse-style units that will rent well below market. The buildings themselves fit well within the neighborhood. Unlike other developers who might pack 50 or 60 units into a small space.
Please.
I would ask if people could at least respect those that are speaking, and others will do the same when it's your turn as well. Okay?
The buildings themselves fit well within the neighborhood. Unlike other developers who might pack 50 or 60 units into a small space, our first goal was to build something that complements Rocky Hill. My family and I have resided in Rocky Hill for over 35 years and have strong ties to the community. Rockmore Acquisitions is a local family-owned business with a multitude of developments in our portfolio. We handle everything in-house, from the construction to the leasing and maintenance, and we believe in a hands-on approach with our properties. In conclusion, I believe local development should stay in the hands of local developers who care about the future of Rocky Hill. As a town, we have responsibility to create affordable housing, and this project allows us to do that in a way that benefits everyone. Unlike absentee investors focused only on profit, we are committed to keeping Rocky Hill beautiful for the long term. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jim Cassidy. I'm a professional engineer and principal with the firm of Halsey, Pearson and Cassidy, located at 630 Main Street in Cromwell, Connecticut. So I've been practicing civil engineer for 36 years in this general area, although I really look like I'm 35. Of those 36 years, I've actually been licensed professional engineer for the past 25 years. Some of my projects that I'm sure members of this commission are well aware of, but I'll just go through several projects I've done just to show you my experience. Obviously, everyone's familiar with Town Center West. Town Center West on West Street and Cromwell Avenue is an 86,000 square foot retail office complex with 144 residential units. Unfortunately, we still have two buildings waiting to be constructed, but so far the overall development has been pretty successful. I'm also responsible for developing the Hospital Central Connecticut Cancer Center on the Plainville-New Britain Town Line, which is a 140,000 square foot medical office building. Several new Tractor Supply retail stores, not only in Connecticut, but all throughout New England. Recently have proven construction of a 800,000 square foot warehouse distribution facility in Wallingford and Meriden that you can actually see being constructed on 91 along the edge of Meriden. With respect to multifamily, recently approved and under construction 950 Troutbrook Drive in West Hartford, Connecticut, which is a 172-unit luxury multifamily, multi-story building on the old Children's Museum property. And recently approved and under construction another 165-unit multifamily development on Evergreen Walk at the backside of Evergreen Walk, and also 159-unit development on New Park Avenue in West Hartford. This is a transit-oriented development. So those are all recent multifamily developments that I've been involved in. I am here also, obviously, tonight representing Rockamore Acquisitions for the development of this property at 1093 New Britain Avenue for the development of a affordable multifamily development. As Andrea has already gone over the site itself, but I'll just reiterate a couple things. The first page in our package, page 1 of 1, is an existing site survey that my office has prepared. The overall site consists of 3.94 acres of R20 residentially zoned land. It is bounded on the north by vacant residential property, which is presently, I believe, a portion of a farm. It is bounded on the east or on the right. Are you guys missing the screen? Or are you looking on your? You got your computer screens? Okay, so sorry, you threw me off here with not having the projection on this side.
Is it on the other side?
It's on the other side, right?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. It's bounded on the east by 2 existing residences along Kobe Road. In addition to, we have about 142.23 feet of frontage on Kobe Road. Bounded on the south by New Britain Avenue with 242.34 feet of frontage along New Britain Avenue. And bounded on the west by a single-family residential house. As Andrea had mentioned, there is a small portion, the northwesterly or top left corner of the property that's actually town of Berlin. That's indicated by the purple line on your screen. So everything to the left of that would be the town of Berlin. It's a very small area, under 10,000 square feet within the town of Berlin. Presently, to the front center of the property, there's an existing 1-story or 1.5-story wood frame house that's been vacant for quite a while and not in great of shape. In addition to the rear of the house, to the back northwest corner, there's an existing wood barn, and also there's remnants of an old greenhouse to the back center of the property. If you take a look at the condition of the vegetation on the site today, what you'd find is the area around the house at one time was a lawn. It's overgrown at this point. Around the perimeter, so along the frontage into Britain Avenue and Kobe Road, there's a series of clusters of trees. And then as you go back about a quarter way through the property, where the grade starts to drop off, it becomes wooded with heavy deciduous and conifers to the back portion. Topography of the site, if you look around the area around the house, is generally graded level with a gradual grade away from the house. There's a high point of about 128 around the existing house. So from the front of the house, there's an area that drains towards New Britain Avenue, and then from the back of the house, everything slopes to the north or to the back until it reaches a point about 200 feet back where the grade drops off and becomes steeper at a grade of about 20%. and eventually grading down to another level area at the far north end of the property, where, as Andrea mentioned, there's a watercourse called Little Brook that kind of runs through the northern section of this property. There is a wetlands area that we had delineated by Davidson Environmental Services associated with that brook. We located the wetlands by accurate survey and depicted it on the plan, and also depicted the 100-foot upland review line from that wetlands. And what we find is all activities we're proposing would be completely outside of the 100-foot upland review area, so no wetlands permit is actually required. Soil types on the site. The soil types consist of the front area is a Hartford, we call Hartford sandy loam. The back half is a Manchester gravelly sandy loam. Why I bring this up is when we're doing hydraulic computations, they fall into what we call a hydraulic category A, which means it has a high infiltration and permeability rate, and excellent for being able to build and allow for infiltration of stormwater back into the ground. In addition to, along the north end of the property, there is a heavy line shown around the watercourse. Little Brook is in a 100-year flood zone, but it is confined just to the brook. Everything else, the area we're developing, is in what we call flood zone X, so that's an area outside a 100-year flood zone. We're substantially higher than the flood zone that's associated with Little Brook. The proposed development, as Andrea had mentioned, we're looking at developing the front portion of the site. So what will happen is the existing house, barn, and other structures, remains of other structures, would be removed. We're proposing to develop this site with 3 townhouse-style buildings, 2 along the Britton Avenue. Building number 1 would be a 8-unit building, so that's the one on the bottom right. Building number 2 would be a 6-unit building. And then to the rear would be building number 3, which is 11-unit building, for a total number of units of 25 2-bedroom units. Total footprint area is 19,808 square feet. Associated with the development of these buildings, we're looking at building a parking lot to service the buildings for the residents. We're proposing to bring a driveway in off of Kobe Road as far north on that property, or north on that frontage, as we possibly can. So it's a little over 100 feet from the stop line at New Britain Avenue. The parking lot the driveway will feed a parking lot that's situated to the rear of buildings number 1 and number 2, and to the front of number 3. Again, providing a total number of spaces of 40, which is at a ratio of 1.6 per dwelling unit. In addition to other things we've incorporated into the overall layout, if I probably can blow up, is if on your plans at the north or southwesterly corner of the parking lot, we've incorporated a pad with a bike rack for residents to be able to use. There's adequate space for parking of 4 bicycles. In addition to, in the design of the building, they're nicely set up where they actually have a back deck area and a storage closet off the deck for additional toys and bikes that they may have to be stored in that area. To the front, as you first come in the access drive, one of the initial questions was about mailboxes and parcel pickups. We have a dedicated mailbox area. We're going to have 2 box setup. There's 13 slots per box, so there's actually a total of 26 slots to accommodate the 25 units. And we also accommodated an additional parcel pickup or mail pickup space, which is not included in the overall parking, so there is that 1 extra parking space for that. What I'll bring up also is, as we've gone through the design and development of all kinds of concept plans, as Max had brought up, there are alternate types of developments we looked at. The initial thought was to basically build a development consisting of 1 single building, single footprint, smaller area, and then associated parking to the back. We were initially looking at something similar to what was approved on the Vessel project, where it was a single 45-unit development with about 60 parking spaces to the back. And working with Mr. Rockamora, we felt it was not in characteristic with the neighborhood. We wanted to do something that was more of a residential scale, so we proposed townhouse units. There are 2-story structures with a sloped roof, front porches, and have an individual front entrance, so they've had more of a residential feel and scale to it. In addition to, as Andrea had mentioned, we worked with the fire marshal to make sure we have adequate access for a piece of fire apparatus into the site. In your plan set, you're going to have a turning maneuver plan. This turning maneuver plan indicates a 40-foot ladder truck coming off of New Britain Avenue, taking the corner around Kobe, and then actually turning into the site, pulls straight forward into the crosshatch area at the far west end of the site, is able to back up into the turnout turnout aisle that's to the west or to the left of building number 3, and then be able to pull right back out onto Kobe Road without any incident. In doing that maneuver, that is about the largest vehicle you'll see coming into the site. The other vehicles we would anticipate are what we call an SU-30, which is your typical box truck, which an SU-30 has a smaller maneuvering radius than this. So if we can get the fire truck in, we can easily maneuver the SU-30 through the site also. As Andrea had also mentioned, initially we had proposed to have our fire hydrant located at the far west end of the site, so it would be at the kind of southwest corner of the parking lot. He asked us to move it more to the front, so it's actually in the island behind building number 1 between the mailbox kiosk and the parking spaces. So it's a lot closer to the front of the site, but we did accommodate that per his request. Site drainage. Site drainage is, I would say, kind of simple here. What you'll find is we tried to incorporate our best management practices and LID measures. I'm trying to take advantage of the soil conditions out here and promote as much infiltration back into the ground as I possibly can. What I propose is to have a series of catch basins within the parking lot to catch all the runoff from the paved parking areas and sidewalks. Within those catch basins, they would be what we call deep sump catch basins. So a normal catch basin has a 2-foot sump. These all have 4-foot sumps with hooded outlets, or what we call snouted outlets. So if there's any floatables or pollutants within the catch basin, it's captured. From there, it'll discharge to an underground infiltration system that's at the rear of Building 3. I'm taking advantage of that location because that's where we have what we call the Manchester Sand and Gravel, which is actually a better soil than a Hartford Sandy Loam to put in an infiltration system. We have done a series of soil tests out there, test pits and percolation tests. We have a very deep cross-section of nice gravelly material and a good infiltration rate of about 12 inches per hour. So we've designed a system based upon that. It has no other outlet other than infiltration. It's designed actually to contain and infiltrate up to a 100-year storm back into the ground. In addition to, we are also proposing to tie all the roof leaders from that building into that system. I know there was a staff comment about considering disconnecting the roof leaders and putting them in smaller disconnected systems, which is typically a rain garden. I found during my testing that the soils to the front are not as good as the soils to the back. I think it would be more advantageous to put all the roof leader water into that back system and let it infiltrate into the ground rather than trying to do little rain gardens and little ponds out in the front where it's not going to be as conducive or accepted for infiltration practices. Site utilities. You also have a site utility plan in your package. That's sheet C13. I'm sorry. I think it's C4. C3. Sorry. The proposed development is going to be serviced by public sewers and public water. Public water will be extended off an existing water main in Kobe Road. Extended right down our site access drive, right down the center of the parking lot. It's going to be an 8-inch main all the way to the end of the parking lot. There will be individual services for each unit off of that main into the buildings. In addition to that main will service the fire hydrant that I previously mentioned. Sewers, we need to extend the sewer main up Kobe Road approximately 300 feet to a new manhole that would be opposite our site access driveway. From there, it would extend into our site. All sanitary sewers would be gravity, tying back into the existing sanitary sewer main in Kobe. In addition to, we're proposing that all other utilities, such as electric, telephone, cable TV, and communication will be buried underground. There is a utility pole at the northerly corner of our access drive. I think it's that pole number 1667. Right now we're proposing to come off that and extend all the way back to a transformer on the northerly side of our parking lot, just out near the dumpster area. Ultimately, the appropriate utility company will need to review and approve that. And at this point, we have met with the MDC. We have talked to them. They have informed us they do have available capacity in their system, but ultimately we'll need to get what we call a developer's permit agreement for extension of the main. So they'll be looking at again, but there is no indication of any issues with providing utilities to this development. Erosion sediment control plan. One of the nice parts about this site is we're not disturbing a large area. It is only about 1.7 acres of disturbance. On the initial plan, we proposed to circumference the site with staked hay bales per your staff recommendations. It was requested that we actually install a stake sill fence backed with hay bales, which we agreed to and have actually added to the upgraded plans. Obviously, we'll have a anti-tracking ramp shown on the far right side of the project, so we don't have any tracking of material out onto the town road, and material stockpiles situated throughout the site. Again, one of the nicest parts is it's a limited area. Ultimately, this project will require a Connecticut DEP stormwater general permit associated with construction activity. We did acknowledge that. And we'll be filing that as part of this project, and it's going to fall into the threshold of what we call locally approvable, but we need to register with DEP, so it's falling into the 1 to 5 acre threshold. We've also provided a landscaping plan as part of the package. Again, I was trying to keep it more like a residential structure, and what we're proposing to do is along the Britain Avenue, have a series of street trees consisting of red oaks situated between each one of the sidewalks that goes out to the main walk along the Britain Avenue. In addition to within the islands of the parking lot, looking to have a series of more ornamental trees such as dogwoods. And then because there's a front porch on each one of the units and there's a area of about 10 feet wide between the steps and the next set of steps, I'm proposing to put a series of foundation plantings that consist of hollies and inkberry, smaller shrubs or foundation type plantings along the front of each unit. It's similar to what you would see in a typical residential house development. In addition to where we come closer to the budding properties on the east and west, I'm also providing an area of arborvitae hedgerow for additional screening for the end of the parking lot. Then one additional area at the northeast corner of the property, another set of arborvitaes for additional screening in that area. Sightlines. I know there's been a lot of question about sightlines and the location of the driveway out there. As part of your package, we did prepare and submit a sightline demonstration. Sightline demonstrations are done in accordance with the Connecticut Department of Transportation Highway Design Manual. Per the design manual, chapter 11 talks about intersection with roadways, minor roadways and major roadways, and the requirements for preparing that sight distance. In this particular case, the design speed along Kobe Road is 35 miles an hour, which requires we provide a minimum sightline distance of 390 feet. We are required per Chapter 11 of the manual to measure that distance at 15 feet back from the edge of the pavement at eye height. So if you're standing in a car, eye height of 3.5 feet to an object height of 3.5 feet. On the plan that was presented in the package, on the far left is a profile showing what that sight line looks in red compared to the gray line below, which is the existing topography. So we typically look for is make sure there's no obstruction such as a curl in the road or a high point in the road that would obstruct your sight line, which in this case it's clear and there's no obstruction. In addition to, we also look at the horizontal geometry, and we depicted on the right-hand side the location of where that sight line would be red. What's nice about this particular application is you can see easily 390 feet from our site driveway, and other than the first 20 feet, the majority of that sight line is actually over the town roadway. So it's a surface that can't get obstructed. There were recommendations in the staff report that we do two things. Number one, that we note that that little area of landscaping or lawn area just to the north of the driveway is maintained and no trees are planted in that area. So on the revised plans, we did add that. In addition to, there's a question about the pole that I previously mentioned at that corner. When we take a look at it in the physical location of the pole, we actually locate the road face of the pole. When we do our sightline demonstration, we find that sightline is actually skimming right across the face of it. You just clear it. But to ensure that there's no chance of it being obstruction, we've agreed to have it moved back. So we're going to put back another 2 to 3 feet, so it's definitely out of the sightline distance. No one's skimming across the top of it. In addition to, as I'll talk about the sightline plan, I'm probably just going to flip back a couple slides here. As was mentioned, and Kermit will get into this briefly, there was a concern about blocking the driveway with traffic queuing on Kobe Road. What we've done on your revised plans is we've actually indicated what we call a boxed out area and installed what we call a don't block driveway sign. This is similar to what happens at Cumberland Farms on France Street. There's a boxed out area. So on the updated plans, we've accommodated that, and it's still, with that boxed out area, provides queuing for at least 4 vehicles and then more beyond the boxed out area. So we feel that that was a reasonable modification per staff request, which has been updated on the plans at this point. I'm not going to go over all the individual comments. A lot of them are more just housekeeping items. We've agreed to and have already corrected the majority of them. I think, again, some of the important things to note in the staff comments, as I mentioned previously, is we acknowledge we need a DEP general permit, which we will file for after we get approval. Any work within the state right away will require a DOT encroachment permit, so we'll be filing for that after we receive approval too. My professional opinion is we've been working on this site and how to configure the site for a long time. I believe, based upon the proposed conditions, this won't have an adverse impact to safety or impact to the surrounding neighborhood. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our traffic engineer, and he can present his portion of the presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kermit Hua. I'm the principal of KWH Enterprise LLC with address at 277 Reservoir Avenue, Unit 101, Meriden, Connecticut. I'm the traffic engineer for this project. I am a registered professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with over 27 years of experience in traffic engineering. What I'm going to do is just briefly summarize the findings of the traffic study and the main responses to the responses to the staff comments, traffic-related comments. The first thing for this study is we estimated number of peak hour trips for the weekday morning, weekday afternoon, and Saturday midday peak hour for these 25 units. The method we use is I used an industry standard ITE manual, Institute of Transportation Engineer manual, 11th edition. I was able to conclude that the peak hour trips for the weekday morning peak hour is 10 trips, for the weekday afternoon peak hour is 13 trips, and for the Saturday midday peak hour is 10 trips. So this question is often raised at public hearings like this. How come you only have up to 13 peak hour trips with 25 units? Two parts as far as my answering that question. One is the ITE manual. They use data from Nationwide and Canada, North American data. So for these kind of developments, it's an industry standard. And also, the second part is not all people leave or arrive at home in the same hour. We're talking about peak hour. You know, if someone say the peak hour, say if it's 5 to 6, if you arrive at home after 6, so you're not counted. You know, so that's the reason for these. Say, for example, 25 units in the afternoon peak hour, we only have 13 trips. That's 13 during the highest peak hour. Based on that, we also did a traffic counts at the intersection of Rule 160 and Kobe Road during these 3 peak hours. And we ran traffic analysis using those peak hour data and the new trips. The findings were during all peak hours for all traffic movements, including the all movements at the signal and all traffic movements at the feature driveway intersection. All the movements will operate at favorable level of service A or B. Just let me briefly define what A or B means. For a signalized intersection, the A is a movement that with an average delay of less than 10 seconds per vehicle. And for a level of service B is for vehicles with average delays of 10 to 20 seconds. So that's signalized intersection. For the unsignalized intersections, such as the driveway intersection on Kobe Road, the same. The level of service A is same. For the level of service B is 10 to 15 seconds. So overall, there really is no traffic capacity constraints at these 2 locations. And this is very rare as far as the traffic studies I do. So this location, from a traffic capacity standpoint, is a perfect location with good signal control, with low volume on Kobe Road, with adequate traffic capacity during all 3 peak hours.
Could we refrain from comments, please? People have a chance to speak. As I said before, please respect those that are speaking, and they will
about
respect you.
traffic accident and safety, typically what we do is look back 3 years of the accident records. For this case, I looked at the accident records maintained by UConn for the state during 2021 to 2023, 21, 22, 23, 3-year period. There was no accident on Kobe Road, the part of Kobe Road right fronting the site during those 3 years. There were 3 accidents at a signalized intersection. The way I do it is I just search the accidents along Route 160. Then I pick a 1.0 mile length of that Route 160 with the intersection at the middle. So in other words, when you say 0.1 mile, that's 528 feet, right? Or in other words, 264 feet either direction of the intersection. So that should capture all the intersection-related accidents for Route 160. So the finding was that there were only 3 accidents. So in other words, about 1 per year. There was also raised the issue, I think, the civil engineer has some interaction with the town engineer about the fact that the signal was installed in recent years, about in 2019 or 2020. So I looked at the accident records for the years before the signal was installed. At the same roadway segment, during a 3-year period between 2016 to 2018, there were 11 accidents. So, the signal really made a difference in this case. So, that's part of the reason I say, this is a perfect location. A developer is fortunate we have this good traffic control on a state road right next to it. The civil engineer mentioned the side distance. So we have more than adequate, actually more than 390 feet. If you look at his exhibit, his sideline, actually, it's not right on top of the roadway surface. It's sort of has a distance. If you draw that sideline right next to the roadway surface, you'll have more than at least, you're talking about 400 to 500 feet sidelines looking left towards along Kobe Road. To the right, we will have no problem, seeing all the signalized intersection, the comings and goings and turning vehicles coming from that intersection. So sidelines, there's no issue as far as sidelines is concerned. One of the main staff comments from the town engineer and the police department is queuing, whether we have enough queuing between the side driveway and the traffic signal, the stop by at the traffic signal. I measured the side plan, the storage length between the edge of the future side driveway and the stop by is about 86 feet. So we have, say, 86 feet of storage space. That's, about 4 vehicles. Average vehicle length is about, 16.5 feet. You say figured 20 feet, including the distance between vehicles. We can put 4 vehicles there. And my traffic analysis shown that the 95th percentile queue, in other words, 95% of the time, the longest queue is about 60 feet. So 60 feet is less than 86 feet we have, as far as the location of driveway is concerned. So we have more than adequate queuing space between the driveway and the stop bar. That's pretty much all I have. In closing, with regard to the traffic-related item I just discussed, it is my professional opinion that there is no public health or safety issues for this development. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Unless the commission has any questions, I'll hand it over to Attorney Gomes.
Thank you, Kermit. Again, for the record, Andrea Gomes, counsel for the applicant. I'll also add, and this is being a bit repetitive, but just so the commission understands, there is no problem with queuing as was originally proposed with the site, but we've gone above and beyond and done what staff requested, which has included that do not block box as well as appropriate signage. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our presentation. I defer to you, of course, but what I'd suggest is if the commission has any questions, we're more than happy to answer those. We can also, I know there's a lot of members of the public here, we can certainly turn it over to public comment if you'd prefer.
We'll do the public first, and then we'll go to the commission.
Absolutely.
We have a list of speakers, and we'll go in that order. To try to maintain some order, I would appreciate people being quiet and no oohs and ahs to comments, just to respect the applicant as well as the speaker speaking. We're also going to try to limit this to like 2 to 3 minutes each person so everyone can get a turn. And if you feel as though you need more than 2 to 3 minutes, you can speak after everybody's done their turn, just so everyone has equal allotment of time. And I believe Kim will call everybody else.
There are additional sheets in back. If you have not signed up to speak, there are additional sheets in back, and I will go up and check later. And I will excuse the pronunciation, please. Number 1, from 1130 New Britain Avenue, Raimundas Kouliasis.
For the record, everyone before they speak, state their name and their address just for the record. Please.
Raymond Kouliasis, 1130 New Britain Avenue. Looks everything good, but not really good for us. I mean, I would tell you just whatever I think, my personal opinion. I purchased that property and live here for 20 years, which one I think to build a house later on the top of the hill. And now is pretty much the time when I want to start to build a house. But realistically, probably that's not going to happen because we're going to have those affordable houses here. So the houses is not going to worth that much money and stuff like that. So, I mean, I definitely don't like that idea. Just my personal opinion. I paying the taxes for 20 years, and assuming you guys think about, something like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Hoffman, 1056 New Britain Avenue.
Yes, hi, Tim Hoffman from 1056 New Britain Avenue. I'm against it. It's a dangerous intersection regardless of what the traffic studies are. I've lived there all my life. It's been progressively worse through the years with the traffic, constantly hearing people screeching their tires, blowing their horns. The owner's owned that property for a while now, and it's been a blight. Has anybody fined him for the blight? I don't think so, but we go after other people in town for the same thing, and we don't go after them. Colby Road's a dangerous road. It's, the curves on it. You drive down Colby Road, it's a racetrack. Yeah, it's supposed to speed limit, but nobody does a speed limit. At one time, there were supposed to be a couple stop signs. Never happened. Slow traffic down. What happened to that? It's just, where are the extra cars? People have parties or whatever. Where are they going to park? Is there enough parking there for people to have people over? Are they going to park on New Britain Avenue? I mean, it's dangerous there. There's back to Colby Road. There's a no through truck sign there. It's constantly trailer trucks going down that road. Just today, there was a tractor trailer truck blowing his horn for people to back up so he can go down a road that says no through trucks. Nobody enforces that. The lights were put there for a reason, obviously. Number one, slow people down, and because it was dangerous. It just doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. I've lived there all my life. This development doesn't fit in. And I'm sure all the other neighbors in the area, too, are going to say the same thing. It's not the right place for it. If you want to build a couple houses on it, that's great, but not a multifamily housing project. It just doesn't fit in. Our property values are going to go down because of it. You know, the town's going to have more services now. Police are going to have to patrol the area more often. I mean, we can go on and on about everything, but my opinion is it's a safety hazard. It really is. And as far as a block box going in front of their driveway, that's a joke. Because who pays attention to it? Nobody. And who enforces it? Nobody. And if anybody knows Kobe Road in the afternoon, when people are using it, it's all backed up, backs up down the hill. So if you're going to say that's going to help, it's not going to help at all. I urge you guys to make the tough decision, deny this application. You know, I mean, for what? We're going to prove it for what? Because of a bureaucratic mandate from the state? It doesn't fit in with the area. Sorry.
Thank you. Again, please, I know there's a motion in the room, but
James Campanario, 1107 New Britain Avenue.
Good evening. I'm not too well versed in public.
name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have to say it.
James Campanario, 1107 New Britain Avenue.
Thank you.
I live directly next door to where 1093 is. I got 2 feet of distance between our markers. And the gentleman that spoke before, I've been living next to Blight for the last 7 years. Numerous calls to the town. Nothing was ever done to rectify anything. So I learned to live with it. After they sold the property to the said person that's trying to do this deal here, the barn was leaning over towards my property, and I told him, I said, you know, keep an eye on that because someday that barn's going to fall on my property, onto my shed, and there's going to be some damage here. Lo and behold, his barn fell over and did some damage to my shed. That was 3 years ago, and it's still in that state. So I hope he's a better businessman than he is giving his word to rectifying something that small. In regard to traffic, that gentleman right there had nailed it. I see traffic going up and down there every day. 50 yards from Kobe Road, and the light was a good decision, but it's still backed up. There's a high volume at certain points, both directions, Kobe Road to Britain Avenue. In regard to this influx of traffic that's going to be generated by these people that are going to be living in these homes, it's going to be a nightmare. And I hate to see it that way because it's a beautiful little town, and I've been there for a lot of years. So obviously I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Campanario, 1107 New Britain Avenue.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Campanario, next door, 1107 New Britain Avenue, Rocky Hill. I agree with my husband. I don't understand how you can fit 25 units of apartments next door, have a two-car family, a husband and a wife, and have only 40 units to park in. 1.6, I think, is what they were saying about allowing. Plus, you also have the possibility of having a teenager. That's another car. So what do? All scramble to come home from work to all decide to get a parking place? And again, about the idea of having people there for parties or even visitors. There's no room there. Coming in and out of that whole area. The idea of putting arborvitaes alongside our property from their property. I want a fence. I don't want arborvitaes. I want a fence. I want designated fence along the property lines that everybody surveyed for. That's another thing I would like different than having arborvitaes. We have already euonymus and burning bush, and they don't serve the purpose. Having a vegetation grows. I don't want to constantly have to take care of their vegetation that they're planting there. I want a fence, a stockade fence, all the way down and in back of the barn that our property line does go to. They don't have the right to encroach on our line. Again, I am against this idea of having this situation because the volume of traffic we get living on New Britain Avenue from both New Britain Avenue and Colby Road is a great deal. And the light does do good up to a point, but we have had major traffic accident when somebody decides to make the wrong turn down Colby Road, and they end up hitting a lot of another person that is making the right-hand turn. So we've had major accidents there. Again, I am not for this.
Thank you.
Adriana Oresco, 86 Fox Hill Drive.
Good evening. Excuse me. Let the record reflect. My name is Adriana Oresco, and I'm at 86 Fox Hill Drive. To the Planning and Zoning Commission, to the fellow residents of Rocky Hill, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you today. My name is Adriana. I'm a 26-year-old recent graduate from Quinnipiac University School of Law. I carry the weight of over $250,000 in student loans, a burden that many young professionals like myself know all too well. Despite working multiple jobs throughout my academic career and law school, whether it was serving tables, teaching dance, or coaching gymnastics here in Rocky Hill at the small business my sister owns, balancing a 25-hour course load, I've always had to work. And still doing that, I've never been able to afford a place to live that reflects the hard work I've consistently put in, and it seems like an unattainable dream to do so. But today, I'm not here to dwell on the struggle that myself and so many others face. Instead, I stand before you in strong support of the proposed multifamily townhouse complex. This project represents more than just a new development in the town. It symbolizes hope and opportunity for so many young professionals, students, families who are struggling to keep their heads above water in today's economy. The reality is that despite all of our hard work, for many of us, even the idea of owning a home feels like an impossible feat. Finding an affordable place to live shouldn't be a luxury, but rather a fundamental right. I can't emphasize enough how critical this project is for people like myself, but so many others, people that have dedicated their lives to education, working hard, only to find themselves that they're still barely scraping by. The inclusion of these affordable units in this development is not just commendable, but necessary. It will provide a lifeline to young graduates like myself who are looking to start their careers and build a life without being crushed by the weight of insurmountable living costs. This project does more than just meet a housing need that we so critically need. It gives back to the community. It takes a neglected and underutilized piece of land and transforms it into something that will benefit the citizens. And by allowing this development to proceed, Rocky Hill will be taking a step towards becoming a town that supports its residents regardless of their current financial standing. What makes this project even more special is the person behind it, Gaetan Rockamora. Gaetan isn't some distant developer or a faceless management company looking to profit from the community. He's a citizen of Rocky Hill, a father, a husband, a grandfather, and a friend. He's a man who understands the struggles we face because he's lived them himself. He's watched his own children navigate this impossible economy, and he's committed to making a difference not just for his own family, but for all of us. Gaetan's vision for the residences is rooted in his commitment to this town, the community, and its future. He's not here to build and leave. He's here to contribute to the community that he loves. By supporting this development, we're supporting a project that will better the community now and for the future generations of Rocky Hill. I urge you to consider the voices of the young professionals, the graduates that can barely survive to live, and the hardworking individuals who are simply asking for a fair chance to live where they work and to thrive in the community that they love and contribute to every single day. Supporting this development is about investing in the future of the town, standing behind a local citizen with a heart for his community, and advocating to make sure that Rocky Hill remains a place where people of all income levels can call home.
Excuse me. Thank you.
If I may just have one more moment.
Yep.
Once again, to the members of the Planning and Zoning Committee, thank you again for your time and the opportunity to speak before you today. I strongly urge you to approve the residences at 1093. Let's make Rocky Hill a place where we can support each other and where local leaders, just like Gaetan Rockamora, can continue to build a brighter future for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eileen Bernard, 893 New Britain Avenue.
My father built a house at 893 New Britain Avenue in 1952.
I'm sorry, ma'am, before you,
Eileen
name
Bernard,
that.
893 New Britain Avenue.
Thank you.
He built it in 1952. If 30 cars came during that time, that was a lot of traffic. Several years ago, someone counted for 1 hour 1,000 cars. So I don't know where you're getting your information, but New Britain Avenue is terrible. That was my aunt and uncle's property. They had beautiful strawberry patch there. We raised Angus bulls in the back. They're probably turning around in their grave now, seeing what's going to happen. People are already talking about tying and chaining stuff down on their property because we don't know what's going to come in. And also, what's going to happen with our property value. Thank you.
Thank you.
Denise Connors, 2203 Jason Drive.
Good evening, Denise Connors, 203 Jason Drive. If I may read the petition that has been started for this. Okay. We are submitting this petition to oppose the proposed multifamily affordable housing project, Rockamora Acquisitions LLC, in order to protect the substantial public interest in the health and safety of the future residents of this affordable housing project and residents of the neighborhood and the drivers and cyclists that use Colby Road. We, the signers of this petition, request that the Planning and Zoning Commission deny this proposal outright with prejudice. Colby Road is used as a major thoroughfare to avoid Berlin Turnpike, going through from Rocky Hill to Newington and vice versa. The developer proposes constructing an affordable housing development and providing access on a road that is not appropriate because of its geometry and proximity to the traffic signal at the intersection of Colby Road and New Britain Ave, thus creating a public safety hazard. Colby Road's curvature and slope is a concern with drivers accelerating to fight the slope going up the traffic light. The entrance to this development on Colby will create a hindrance and safety issue. Residents from the development will fight for right of way to exit the development with oncoming cars from both directions, all going at high speed. These problems will be exacerbated in winter. Sight distance is already an issue on Colby Road. The DOT installed a traffic light at the intersection a couple years ago because of traffic, safety concerns, and accidents. In addition to the traffic light, they placed pole-mounted lights at driver's eye level about 6 feet high to address sight distance issues and give enough warning to drivers approaching the intersection. There are already driveways, curb cuts on Colby from single-family homes, and the additional driveway from the proposed multi-apartment complex will create a dangerous situation coming in and out of the development, including risking the safety of the drivers and cyclists traversing Colby Road. All property owners will have to cut and maintain vegetation perfectly in order to provide appropriate sight distance for resident traffic leaving the complex. However, this parcel has not been maintained by the owner and is a blight to the residential area. We do not have any faith that the owner will maintain the property as needed after construction to maintain appropriate sight distance to avoid accidents. Why should residents of this housing development be jam-packed into a small site with very dangerous access on Colby Road? Is that because they are not the residents of high-end family homes, single-family homes? They deserve better. The proposal fails to provide adequate access to and exit from this high-density development to protect public interest in health and safety. We need to build affordable housing without putting future residents and current town residents at risk. The town must ask for an independent traffic study, including a letter from DOT asking them to clarify the reasons for putting a traffic light and pole-mounted signals. The developer must also be asked to provide an alternative access and eliminate access through Kobe Road. We request to deny this application before someone gets hurt or loses their life because of this ill-planned development. And on a personal note, as a mom, a single mom who has lived in Rocky Hill for over 10 years, I have an owner of a condo. My son, who is a teenager, will be driving soon. I use that cut through all the time to go to Walmart, to go to bypass the Berlin Turnpike. My son's friend lives that way. So with him driving soon, it's going to be it's a public safety hazard. And in addition, I don't think we need more additional housing right now in Rocky Hill. Our schools are already jam-packed. And thank you for listening.
I cannot read the last name, so I apologize. It looks like Marianne Requiat. It's at 1013 New Britain Avenue. I apologize. If you could spell your last name for me, I'd appreciate it.
Rogowski.
Okay, thank you.
And it's Marjana. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak. When I heard about this project, I was very upset. I have lived in my house since '96, so I started my family, young family back then. Back then, New Britain Avenue was always a busy street. Over the years, it grew even more. To see something like this being proposed is very upsetting to me, knowing what I have to deal with on a daily basis. Traffic, heavy traffic, hazards, safety hazards. Just to give you a little bit of a background, I lost a dog, not to, just because the street is so busy. Many days when my kids were younger, I would be petrified letting them run around the front of the yard because of the street. And the thought of having additional traffic, additional exposure, hazard exposure, it's very upsetting to me. So I am asking you to deny this proposal. I'm very much against it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the name is Hunia Hajtek, 20 Stockton Lane.
Gunia Wojciech, 20 Stockton Lane. So I guess most of it was already said. I am totally against it. I think that project basically absolutely doesn't belong in our neighborhood. Guys that are actually involved in money making probably do believe that. You guys represent citizens of Rocky Hill and in neighborhood. I guess we do have a say. So decision is yours, but it should be based on people that live around. The intersection of the Kobe Road, I take this road 3-4 times every day. It is a dangerous road, but that's besides the point. I would suggest that maybe developer takes that project and put it in a downtown somewhere. This is definitely 20,000 square feet zoning, and it probably should remain like that. Totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim? Kim? If you have trouble with the name, why not read just the address and they can pronounce the names for you?
We can do that also.
Yeah, that would be easier for you.
Christopher Duff, 1108 New Britain Avenue.
And we get a simple one.
There you go.
Chris Duff, 1108 New Britain Ave. I'm almost exactly across the street from it. I realize this is an 830G application, so the town is going to be limited in its availability to deny the application, but perhaps we can work together to make it more safe. I have a couple concerns that are in the area of safety, the entry onto Colby Road, the impact onto neighbors, and the activity around the front of New Britain Ave. One of the concerns that I have with going up Colby Road is that's perhaps the only road that I'm aware of in town that has a mirror that someone, I don't know if it's a town mirror, but someone had to hang a mirror on a retaining wall so you can see around the corner. I understand they put together a very good application. They got qualified engineers, perhaps, and you know, they're doing what they can to fill out the site, as is their right to develop. Perhaps we could look at other ways of accessing that site. I'm very concerned with just having it off and on Colby Road. It's a very dangerous intersection. It's a lot of blind corners, and I don't feel, especially in times of bad weather, safe driving myself, you know, worrying about people coming in and out of those blind driveways. So something, if it's traffic calming, if it is reconfiguring the entrance and exit out of the site, I think is worth taking a look at to see if it could be more safe. I'm also very concerned about any added activity onto the frontage on New Britain Ave. When the Amazon truck comes by, things get a little hectic because we've got people, you know, they're parked in the shoulder, and we have, you know, people trying to fit through a pretty narrow path. We're looking at putting a sidewalk there to encourage things. Well, it may not be encouraged, but if you have a sidewalk and if you have paths leading to a door, that's going to encourage things like the Uber Eats delivery, package drop-off, friends dropping by. I'm very concerned about having that sidewalk there, especially with how dangerous that the road is, New Britain Ave by itself. The light has been an improvement. When that light is off, people are going up that road 60, 70 miles an hour. I work from home. I see it all the time. I've got 2 small kids, and the first thing that I did when we had the house and they weren't crawling was we put up a fence on the side because there's no way I would let them play in the front yard. I was shocked. My stomach almost dropped when I looked and saw that we had an open sidewalk there. I don't know how people are going to have little kids visit that site, you know, people with their grandparents, their young families, even people with pets, and have open access to that road. I mean, something could go by in 30 seconds and someone's out in the road. So I would at least recommend, I'm usually a sidewalk guy, but that seems like something where we need better safety measures and a fence that would stop someone from being able to access the site, and also would hopefully calm down some of that other activity like package drop-offs, food delivery, if that's a modification that can be made. I'm not surprised to see that in reviewing the traffic study that was localized just that intersection, that we didn't have as much activity because no one was there for 3 years. Now we're talking about adding a lot more activity there. And you know, the developers did what they needed to do with the traffic site and according to the permits for the support this application. I think the commission should take a more holistic view of what's happening on New Britain Ave and the traffic as a whole. We don't have to go that much further up the road, and we've had several fatalities, including a bicycle fatality on the intersection of New Britain and New Road. So anything we can do to increase safety on New Road and help decrease those types of activities. It's great that people want to bike. I see people biking down New Britain Ave. It is very, very scary. There's almost no shoulder there. And then lastly, I would request that in terms of limiting the disruption on the neighbors, I assume this is probably part of the process, but it should be mentioned, low impact lighting, other types of barriers to help block down noise from the parking lot. I mean, this is going to be right on top of people's houses. And I know there was a request for silt fence. That's great. If we can go as strong as possible on those type of water protection and erosion control measures, we just had 2,000-year rainstorms in a week in Connecticut. You know, we can't cut any corners. I'm sure the developer would work with us on that as heavily as they can go to help protect those lands as possible. So we've got a lot of neighbors who've been there for a long time, and the pitch is very steep. So, you know, we don't want any damage there. So I am hopeful that the commission will be able to work with the developers to help increase the safety of whatever does get developed, which will probably be bigger than anybody had thought about when looking at that site. But I'm hopeful that we'll have good recommendations to help improve it and make it more safe for people of that town. Because if it doesn't go right, it's really, really dangerous, especially if we're looking at building a sidewalk that's connect people across a mostly blind intersection. That's very, very scary for to think of how that would interact. So hopefully we can work together and improve it for the town and increase safety for the area. Thanks.
Thank you.
On Vu, 160 Kobe Road.
Good evening. Anh Vu, 160 Kobe Road. I'm a new resident in Rocky Hill, right across the street from the proposed plan. Ever since we moved in, we haven't been able to walk down Kobe Road at all to walk the neighborhood, just because how dangerous the road is. There's blind spot. There's high traffic during peak hours. While I respect the professional engineering and traffic engineering studies, but the reality is much different than how they obtain the data, however they do it. While I do agree that we do need affordable housing for Rocky Hill, I don't think the site is appropriate just because of the traffic and the blind spot. My wife was almost hit by a car while backing out of the driveway, just because of the blind spot. Also, even though there are, no truck crossing on Kobe Road, there's no one enforcing it. Nobody's following the regulations. So that's why I'm against the proposal. Secondly, this proposal will drastically affect property price. And I think they have addressed the environmental concerns, and yep. But that's all I have. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marcelo Sparagana, 156 Kobe Road.
Excuse me, he's allowing me to go ahead. I just gotta get my kid to bed pretty soon, so is that okay?
Okay.
Who are you?
Fine.
Hello, Council. Omar Katan, 35 Andover Drive.
Could you spell your name, please?
Omar, last name Cattan.
Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, neighbors and concerned citizens, thank you for coming together today to address this issue. I will proudly impact our community. The proposed apartment development in our neighborhood, while we recognize the growth and inevitable, we must take a hard look at the full consequence of this project on our environment, our traffic, and our very quality of life we hold dear. Let's start with the environmental impact. Our community is more than just building roads. It's a sanctuary of green spaces and natural habitats that are vital to local wildlife and essential to the well-being. This development threatens and destroys the irreplaceable areas, erasing biodiversity that make our community unique and stripping away the green space that we all treasure. The construction will pave over permeable surface, leading to increased stormwater runoff, and let's not forget the flooding we've already endured over the past 2 years, causing significant damage to nearby homes. This additional runoff won't just disappear. It could pollute our rivers and streams, compromising the water quality for everyone. And let's be clear, once the land is lost, it's lost forever. Now let's consider the strain in this development will place on our local infrastructure, particularly our roads. Picture the daily frustration, worsening traffic, congestion, and the rising number of speed-related incidents. Our roads are already on the brink of overload, especially with the new Culver Street development in Newington. Commutes will drag on longer, and the likelihood of accidents, some potential fatal, will increase. Our once quiet neighborhoods will turn into chaotic cut-throughs as drivers seek to escape the gridlock on main roads. And who will bear the burden of upgrading these roads and handle the extra traffic? We will, the taxpayers. Safety is a critical concern that we cannot ignore. More traffic means greater risk for everyone, especially our children, our elderly, and everyone who walks and bikes through these streets. Increased congestion will inevitably delay emergency vehicles, turning to what we could have been minor accidents into major tragedies. Moreover, a significant influx of new residents will stretch our local law enforcement resources thin. New developments often attract people from outside communities, including those looking for opportunities to commit crime. Our police force will be tasked with covering a large area and responding to more incidents, which could mean slower response times and reduced ability of crime. In conclusion, this development threatens not just our environment, but our infrastructure, and most importantly, our safety. While growth is important, it must be a balance between the needs. We'll begin with our community. I urge each and every one of you to stand with me in petitioning against this development. Together we can protect our homes and keep our streets safe and preserve the quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Yeah, you skipped somebody.
No. I didn't know if.
Name and address for the record, please.
Tejal Valam, 45 Andover Drive. I'm here to speak about the fact that while I absolutely believe in housing opportunities and the fact that affordable housing is necessary and Rocky Hill does need to come up to par, we also need to understand that 245 residents, including myself, have signed a petition expressing concerns about this project's scope and its location, especially the driveway. Living on Andover Drive for over 15 years, I have experienced a lot of close calls trying to turn on to Kobe from Andover. No matter what the traffic study says, when cars come on to Kobe, it is a dip and then an up, and then the stop sign is just past Hidden Valley. Trust me when I tell you, cars zoom by, and there is never any cops to enforce it because there's really actually no place for a cop to sit to enforce it. So having young kids that drove, and also my elderly mother who used to drive, I used to tell them, please go on to Hidden Valley and either take a left or a right because Andover going on to Kobe is extremely dangerous. Now, that topic is probably about 5 years old. Since then, traffic has increased a lot. So I'm not sure where the traffic study is coming from, but people that live there will tell you, as they have, that road is dangerous in itself. Add to it the new departments that are coming in Culver Street on Newington. Everybody cuts through Kobe. It is the fastest way to get to the north side towards Hartford and southbound toward past Berlin. We cannot have another 40 cars plus added to an intersection that's less than 150 feet from a traffic light. Just think about it. There is no way there's 3 cars. I've been there. And when cars are piled up, cars that want to turn right, try to wiggle around so they can get past because you can take a right turn without a traffic light. So they try to wiggle, and when they do, there are so many close calls. At the same time, I do not understand how from this driveway you're going to have cars coming out that would like to turn left, that would like to turn right. You have oncoming traffic this way. You have pile-up traffic this way that wants to go left and right. And now, I don't know how many students are going to come into this complex. Maybe few, maybe 2 or 3. Add to it a school bus. How is this going to work? It doesn't make sense to me. I have seen plenty of accidents in my time. Driving home at night one time, there was my neighbor's dog was on the street. He was hit, and unfortunately, passed away. No one stopped. No one stopped. I actually had to go into my neighbors and say, I believe that's your dog on the road. And it was right a little bit past Andover and on Kobe. Cars speed there. So I strongly urge the commission to consider the neighbors, consider the traffic, consider your decision to be more of a public safety concern, because like previous people have said, once this goes in, there's no way to take it out. Pedestrians, bicyclists, cars, trucks, every kind of vehicle does go in and out of there. No one stops it. And there's already been a fatal accident by the bicyclists. There are people that walk that road. Now you have a driveway, and now you have a sidewalk on the main road, a sidewalk that pretty much will go to nowhere. Makes no sense. And at the same time, while I would really love to see more affordable housing come to town, I would like this commission to be responsible in the way it actually puts it in this town. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now that guy gets to speak.
Good evening. My name is Marcello Sparagna. I live at 156 Kobe Road. And I can only multiply whatever she said, the last speaker, by 10 times at least. I lived at this location for over 30 years now, a little over 30 years. Now, with all due respect to the Commissioner of Traffic, he says his office is in Meriden. I know we all have to work for a living. I have a job, I have a business. His job is to provide information that someone requests for, and I pay for it. I don't know where he got the information from. Like I said, with all due respect, we live there. By the way, my driveway is directly across. There's three of us here. There's three driveways directly across from the new proposed driveway. I mean, directly across. Right now, we have to wait for the traffic either left or right. The major concern is, as I said before, my daughter, she's got 3 little kids. She comes to visit us about 2-3 times a week. And her kids are 1.5 to 10 years old. She's got the 3 kids in the car, and she's almost to the point where she doesn't want to come and visit us anymore. And by the way, another good point that was made, there's a development coming up in Newington, up the street there from us. I'm sure you all know about it, which is only going to add, the study was done based on this proposal, not taking into consideration what's coming up right behind it, which is less than about an eighth of a mile up the street. All the traffic is going to be coming this way as well. So it's easy for us to sit here and listen to all the engineers and the experts, whatever they come up with. But has any one of you ever spent a day there, a half a day? The lady before said that someone made a study, they counted 1,000 cars a day, an hour. I can testify to that. Because just last week, I was sitting right in front of my house with my granddaughter, and we were counting the cars. Actually, I had to stop because it was more than that. So you're actually wrong on that. There's a lot more than that. And that's on New Britain Avenue. Kobe Road, I've been there for 30 years now. Yes, I made a choice. It was my choice to live there. I bought the property, I built a house there. No one forced me to do that. Back then, it wasn't as bad. I mean, it was decent. There was some traffic, but obviously over 30 years, everything grows, everything develops. And I want to make sure I pronounce this right. Going back to Mr. Rocamora family, you say your family's been here.
Sir, to us.
I'm sorry.
Okay, you direct it to us, please.
His family's been here all of his life. He says he grew up here, so he wants to do nothing but the best for Rocky Hill. And I want to respect that. But if that is the case, I have a feeling that he must have quite a bit of property somewhere, especially around where he lives. I don't know where he lives. So why not propose these kind of projects closer to his property where it doesn't impact some of our lives as much as it's going to? So going back to what I was saying before, I would appreciate if any of you, all of you, spend one day there, just one day, that's all it takes. Spend one day there and watch the traffic as it is now. When this goes through, and along with the other development that's coming up the street there in Newington, and by the way, the commissioner says something about there was no accidents the past 3 years. My wife sits there at times when she didn't have anything to do during the day, a few times, and she just sits down to relax. I can't even count the times where we heard big bangs. I don't know if somebody's not reporting him, they get swept under the rug. I don't know what's going on. But there's been major accidents. That's why the light was put up. Nobody put up the light there just because they had nothing to do. There was a major reason why they put that up. And we still had accidents since then. We still have them. We had one not too long ago, about a couple of weeks ago. I ran out there almost half naked because what the heck was going on? It happens And it hasn't even started yet. So I am totally against this. And by the way, one question for you guys, I don't know, no one asked this question. Why hasn't the driveway been proposed to go on New Britain Avenue rather than Kobe Road? Can someone answer that?
It's for the applicant, not for us. So the applicant will.
You will ask him and get
No,
back to me with the answer?
You just did, and they will provide an answer.
Because the worst place to put it, it's on Kobe Road. I mean, I'm no expert when it comes to that, and I think most of us, with the exception of the commissioner, most of us in here are no experts when it comes to this. But logic tells me that that is the worst place. If anybody said, where could we possibly find the worst place to put up this driveway, it'll be right there, smack where they're putting it right now. And if they say, well, we can't put it on the Brain Avenue because it's going to create too much traffic, whoa, really? I'd really like to get an answer for that one. And I'm totally against it, totally against it. I'm going to fight very hard against this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't make it on the list, but my name's Jenny Marco, and I live at 150 Kobe Road. I live next to Marcello, actually, and I'm very pregnant, so if I'm out of breath, please forgive me as I take my time. But there are a lot of reasons why I'm against this proposal, but I'm going to focus on the reasons related to health and safety since that's the main concern here. Within 6 months of moving into our home, my husband and I moved in, and we had a speeding car drive right into our mailbox, knocking it over, causing us to have to replace it. Replacing it in itself became a hazard for my husband because in having to go to the end of our driveway and, conduct that yard work and replacement, he almost got hit by a car. Every time he goes out there to weed whack or to get our mail, poses a risk to his safety because the cars come speeding up and down that road. As mentioned by a previous speaker, we're the home that has the mirror right across the street on that pole that helps us see the blind corner on the right. But even with that mirror, we still, every day on a daily basis, just narrowly avoid an accident from cars speeding up due to the curvature and the need to increase the speed going up that road. So the mirror itself doesn't help. And so adding 40 plus cars to the equation and just increasing backup, increasing the traffic through that area, just it doesn't seem workable for us since we avoid accidents every day as it is. Just to reiterate something that's been said by multiple people before, 1.6 spots per unit is just something that seems very inadequate for this proposal. I have the same concerns about if they have guests. We already struggle, myself, Marcello, Ethan, we struggle with not having spaces for our guests who come to visit our home. So all I can imagine are people living in the townhouses having guests or other visitors, or even just multiple people in a household with more than one car. Having to park down New Britain Avenue or down Kobe Road, which causes visibility issues. It causes more confusion and backup for cars coming up and down the road. So that's just something I want to reiterate. Another concern is that when traffic is trying to turn onto Kobe Road from New Britain Avenue, there will be many backups due to the fact that there's going to be an influx of 40 plus cars trying to pull into that apartment complex driveway, since it's the single entrance from Kobe Road. So if they have to turn left and there's cars coming up the road, and if there's a blockage, cars who are then trying to pull onto Kobe Road from either direction are going to be fighting each other for the right of way to be the next in line, causing a backup at that light, causing more issues. It's just something, again, that doesn't seem workable. On a personal note, again, I'm pregnant. I'm expecting our first child in October. And when we bought the house, we were aware of the dangers that Kobe Road posed as it is, but we did not sign up for an additional 40 plus cars across the street, 25 plus families being neighbors right across the street. We did not sign up for the increased traffic in the residential area where we would live. According to the traffic assessment that was submitted by the applicant, it said that there were 3 reported accidents within the past 3 years. But what about the accidents that were not reported? Because I know that my husband and I can speak from personal experience. There have been multiple instances in the past 3 years where we had to personally go out to the end of our driveway to see cars pulled to the side of the road due to an accident and ask if they were okay and see what was going on because we had strangers parked outside of our homes. So, those are accidents that don't make it onto their report or their traffic assessment because they were not officially reported. And just for me, even if you did want to go by the 3 reported accidents on the traffic assessment, for me and for someone who's expecting their first child, that's still too many accidents for comfort in a residential area where I will be living, where my daughter will be living.
And I guess aside from the health and safety concerns, I just want to point out that CGS 830G only requires 30% of the units to be affordable in order to qualify as a set-aside unit, in which case this would be 7.5 units that would have to be affordable. In this case, the applicant is only submitting 8 affordable units, and so to me that just kind of shows that they're only trying to fit the set-aside exception, and they're not really, it's not primarily in the interest of the public having affordable housing, because if that was the case, they'd be offering more than 8. But in this case, they're only meeting the statutory requirement to fit under that exception. So while I appreciate the applicant's history with the town and his desire to provide affordable housing for the public interest, I just ask all of you to please consider the actual members of that same public who spoke tonight and voiced our concerns about public safety, and that would be directly affected by this proposed development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Nathaniel Williams. I live at 1107 New Britain Avenue. I'm happy to see everyone's here this evening. A lot of neighbors, a lot of concerned, citizens of Rocky Hill. The few thoughts I had that quite didn't get touched on are the 2 homes adjoining the property to be developed would be ours, and then the people on Colby. I think that obviously with a major construction project like that, that's an immediate concern. And it's obviously a well-developed plan because of the drawings and the architecture, and everything's there. The testing the soil and everything. That's wonderful. Living next door to that piece of property, which again has just been overgrown and blighted, the barn falling over onto our property. That's one thing. But imagining like a major construction project. I've walked by it ever since the initial newspaper article, looking out my bedroom window, just trying to imagine that many units on that property. And I have lived in a structure like that years ago in New Britain. So it was a series of 2 blocks of 6, 2-level townhouses. I'm familiar with that configuration. But it's probably the most ambitious building and lot you could put on that relatively small piece of property. It's frankly, it is hard to imagine. I would imagine maybe that's the most extreme iteration of developing that property, but again, it's just really hard to imagine walking by it, looking outside, and now that I see now that I think about it, I'll be staring at a fence and dumpsters on the immediate other side. So being creative about parking, the parking doesn't seem sufficient for the units. Studies, this and that, that's fine. If people have to find auxiliary parking beyond that property, they're going to be parking down at the first cul-de-sac around the corner and having to walk up the street. And obviously, traffic has been mentioned relentlessly this evening, but it's a genuine concern. I have an animal. I tried walking this dog up and down the street, New Britain Avenue, and just crossing that one intersection, you feel like your life is on the line. You got to be extra careful, So I don't want to hammer that nail anymore, but it's certainly a concern. But that's all. It's hard not to imagine, life through the construction and then something else being built there. I'm happy that it's going to be developed and something done with it, because again, it's just overgrown. It's a mess. There was a house fire there, years ago. The barn's completely fallen down. So I'll be happy to see something built there. But again, this is probably the most ambitious version of this, of what could be developed on that property. I would like to see something more conservative, maybe half the size. I mean, I expected 1 or 2 homes to be built on that same property, and I don't know what kind of structures everyone lives in here, but would you want this project occurring, outside your kitchen window for the next couple of years, and then, having to live with that? And one study I haven't seen is how will this affect property values of all the concerned neighbors and citizens here this evening. So, but thank you for your time, and I hope everyone has a good remainder to their week.
Thank you.
Eileen Bernard, 893 New Britain Avenue. When my father built a house, he had to blast because we're on shale. Is this property have shale on it? Was it tested? If we can get an answer on that, because it will ruin houses around it. And don't tell me it won't, because I've seen it happen. Walls cracked, foundations cracked. So it'd be nice to get an answer on the shale part.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on the list, Kim?
There's no one on this list. I'll check it back.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Yeah. Before we continue, I would like to request a motion for a 5-minute break.
I was going to ask that. Motion for 5-minute break.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I didn't want to interrupt, but you did it for me. Thank you.
No, I don't think. Here's a full blown. Just the letter that refers to questions about that traffic study.
Oh, I don't have the original packet here.
Can we have somebody speak?
I have the file.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, motion to come out of recess?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, can I proceed?
Yes, I just want to make sure there's no one else from the public that wants to speak before she proceeds.
We have one more.
Apparently, we have one more. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Good evening, Day of Shadowfax 11, 36 Willow Road. At looking at the site plan that I just saw this evening, the parking spaces, there's less than 2 per unit, and there's obviously going to be overflow parking required. People are going to have more than one vehicle, guests, so on. And it occurs to me that they will most likely be parking in these areas where emergency vehicles will need to turn around. And from what I understand about the reasons for denial would be public safety, and having emergency vehicles not be able to turn around would be grounds for denial of the current plan. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, again, Andre Gomes, counsel for the applicant. So, Mr. Chairman, we've heard a lot through public comment. My entire team has been taking a lot of notes. I believe, given the date that we got the staff comments, the date that we were able to submit today, the responses and revisions to the plan, staff has not yet had an opportunity to review that. It's the applicant's preference, and I'm sure the commission's, that we continue the public hearing so that we can have an opportunity to let staff review, and then we can also take a better look at a lot of the comments that were made by members of the public and respond to them in writing. So that is our intention. I have a couple of initial responses I'd like to put onto the record now, again, with the caveat that we'll be doing a more comprehensive response in advance of the next public hearing. So with that, I'll just dive right in. First and foremost, I wanted to address some of the comments that can be categorized only as completely improper stereotyping of multifamily residents and multifamily housing, particularly affordable housing. We heard comments about increased crime, police activity, the need to chain things down on one's own property, all because there are residents who will be moving into this multifamily community, some of whom qualify for affordable housing. That is completely improper, and that goes without saying, and that is not only irrelevant to the Commission's determination under 830G, but I do have to put onto the record improper, inaccurate, and you're talking, as you heard from Ms. Oresco, I believe, you're talking young professionals, your teachers, your firefighters, your police officers. These are folks that are making $66,000 to $88,000 a year. Those are the people qualifying for the affordable units. And the rest of the units, the market rate, they're still going to be rented at moderate rates. They're not luxury units. So again, with that, I'll just leave it at that. Improper stereotyping, and we do not condone that. Much of the conversation focused around traffic, of course, and we, again, will respond in writing. But of course, I have to differentiate the difference between congestion and safety. We've heard a lot about traffic volumes. There is a big difference between congestion and safety, and the Commission has to keep that in mind. There was discussion about the crash data. You heard from Mr. Hua that the crash data is it's very low for the area, and that the traffic light has helped. A number of the members of the public have agreed that the traffic light has significantly helped the existing conditions there. And there was a lot of speculation. People are going to violate the law. They're going to speed. They're not going to pay attention. They're going to cut through. They're going to go around the bend too fast. The law is very clear, and this Commission has heard me say before, that the Commission can't take those speculative what-ifs and run with them. The Commission has to, and the applicant is entitled to, a presumption that people are going to comply with the law. And the case law is very clear on that. We are going to comply with the law as the applicant, our residents will, and passersby will. Because if you go beyond that, it becomes untenable. You can come up, I said this at a public hearing last night, you can make a cotton ball dangerous if you think hard enough. So you have to have that presumption for the applicant's benefit that people are going to comply with the law. And I'll also point out from traffic, to the extent there are concerns with safety in the area, these are existing concerns. Again, our position as the applicant and everything, the expert data that is in the record, is that they're not existing concerns with safety in the vicinity of our site. However, that being said, you're looking at existing conditions, and what the commission is evaluating is how our proposed development impacts those existing conditions. You're talking at peak hours, 10 or 13 cars entering and exiting the site at peak hours. That's what industry standards tell and what our traffic counts have told. That's a de minimis impact on existing conditions and something the commission should keep in mind. Moving on from traffic, there was a lot of discussion about the property being blighted and a comment about how can we trust this applicant, this developer, if the site looks the way it is now. Mr. Rockamora, or one of his entities, purchased the site on December 28th, 2022. And pretty much from the moment he purchased that site, he entered the planning process to eventually end up where we are tonight. There is an intention to improve the property. That's why we're here. That's why there's been such a big investment. And regarding his experience and the ability to trust that the property will be maintained as we are proposed, Mr. Rockamora has a number of other developments throughout the town of Rocky Hill, another one in Newington. Certainly we can provide the commission with some of that information so it can evaluate for itself the condition and the status of those properties to date. There were discussions about property values. Again, the commission knows not relevant to 830G, but I did not hear one person claim that they are a licensed appraiser, and I hear that at probably every hearing for multifamily development. My property values are going to go down, but very rarely do we actually see any data that supports that by a qualified appraiser. And then lastly, the last thing I will just mention before turning it back to you, Mr. Chairman, is the petition that was provided by members of the public. We understand and certainly value public input, but I do have to say as the counsel for the applicant that does not in any way impact this site plan application under 830G. There are certain instances where petitions can impact zoning applications, as this commission certainly knows, but this is not one of those instances. It does not impact the legal standard. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will open up our team to any questions the commission may have, and then of course we will be back before the commission for additional presentation.
Okay, so it's our turn now.
Can I suggest that we actually continue it now? Because there's a lot of stuff that we were given, the plans are changed, and we may have different questions at the questions at the next session. So we're not repeating.
I would like to open it up to all the commissioners and leaving it open for new questions with the material that's on our desks, because we prepped for it. I want to make sure everyone has a chance to express their concerns so they can tell us the answers. So it didn't go through naught.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, we completely agree and appreciate that. To the extent the commission has any questions or requests, we'd appreciate hearing them now, because then we can hopefully address them before the next public hearing instead of coming back and kind of doing this again next time.
Commissioner Glico, you're up.
If I may,
Yes.
we do have a lot of correspondence on the table also, so I don't know where in the process you'd like me to.
I'd like to get through the commissioners first and then
Okay.
get to the correspondence.
Okay.
Commissioner Glico.
Okay. One question I have is in reference to the sight line. And I'm not sure who to address that to, or just generally ask the question and see if I get a
I'm going to
response.
ask our engineer to come up since he prepared the sight line, but it may be something that Mr. Hua has to opine on as well.
So looking north from the driveway, you said that it clears the telephone pole, but it looks like it's drawn into the northbound lane. And if traffic's coming up, traffic is heading south, the sight line is looking in the north line.
It looks across the northbound lane, correct.
Right. So because of the curve, wouldn't you want to move the sight line into the oncoming traffic lane as a sight line?
Typically, that's not the way it's done. Typically, it's measured from specifically 15 feet back from the edge of the pavement. We don't take into consideration curvature of the roadway. Again, those are DOT specifications. Again, we are moving the pole further back If you'd like a demonstration of it taking further back, so I could try to keep the entire thing within that southbound lane, I could try that, but that's not how the DOT design manual specifies to do it.
Okay.
We would like,
Yeah,
we would like that.
We could take a look at
I'm
it.
just
sure.
confused because it just, to me, it doesn't make logical sense if it's not in the sight line of the traffic.
So to be clear, Commissioner, you want a sightline plan that evaluates the sightline on the oncoming traffic?
I guess,
okay.
yeah, because,
With the pole movement.
With the pole movement, okay.
well, I'm confused on the pole movement because is that something that actually could be done?
Relocate the pole if we pay for it, sure. It's a inline pole, so yeah, there's going to be expense.
But you're
We're-
saying you're moving it back toward the property line.
Correct.
So then you're taking it out of it being a straight line, you're moving it, you're putting it.
There's already a bend in the power line there. There's a slight angle in the power line. It's not a straight line.
Okay.
We've done it before.
Okay. The other question is sidewalks on New Britain Ave. Has the DOT specified guardrails or anything?
No, so obviously, as you mentioned, we need to file for a DOT encroachment permit and meet all their specifications. I cannot see them requiring sidewalks. That was one of the comments that one of the residents brought up as to why do we have sidewalks along the Britain Avenue. We thought it was going to complement the existing sidewalks that are already out there in extension 2. But obviously, if the commission and the neighbors don't feel it's appropriate, we can reconsider configuration of the sidewalk, bring them further into the site, and somehow loop back into our parking area, so they're not along New Britain Avenue. But ultimately, DOT would have to sign off on them. I would have a hard time imagining them not allowing them and actually requiring a guardrail, seeing other sidewalks that are installed along New Britain Avenue don't have any guardrails along them either.
Yeah, that's all I got for now.
Commissioner Hussey.
I've got plenty of questions, but I don't want to steal thunder from the other commissioners. So let me.
Take a couple.
I think my main one. Kind of riding what Commissioner Aglico said, giving a better depiction, looking down Kobe is would be a good thing. In addition to that, I think in one of the plans, Jim, I think it was one of your plans, you kind of depicted in terms of elevation difference. So if there's a better way to understand, you're looking at about almost 4 stories differential between where this exit is onto Kobe versus where a car is right at about Stockton Lane. So 4 stories is pretty significant. I know you have the sight line, but if there's a better way to give a depiction with that kind of elevation change, that's pretty severe. I think that would be good. Kind of coinciding with that thought. So I know it's not a subdivision. I understand that. If it was a subdivision, this is equivalent to, let's call it 25 homes. Obviously, we know by our regulations it would not be inconsistent with our current subdivision regulations. So having said that, the spot where it dumps onto Kobe is, in fact, would cause congestion. And Attorney Gomes, I know you mentioned congestion and safety, and they're 2 separate, distinct things, but added congestion could lead to a safety concern. So I don't know if there was any other renderings. Some of the members of the public said this, and it's one of the things that I wanted to ask of the applicant. Was any consideration brought forward on your end for a possible entrance/exit on New Britain Ave, possibly leaving the site with a right turn only so that there's a smooth flow? I kind of leave that up to you as professionals to address that. The last thing I had, I think this is going to be directed to Kermit. Your traffic, so you give us a trip generation, and that is assuming the build. So what I don't see, and maybe you can point this out, Kermit, I don't see a trip generation number with pre-build. Without this development going in, I see letters and I see A and B, A being the least. I get that. But do you have actual numbers of a trip generation in your packet? Do you have that in a chart? When I thumbed through it, I didn't see it, but maybe it's in there.
Commissioner, you're asking for traffic counts of existing conditions in the area?
Correct. Yep. And in addition to that, it is traffic counts. We understand that. Do we take into account numerous trips of perhaps an Amazon truck or any other delivery vehicles? Are you not allowing them in the site, or how does that work? Because that plays a pretty vital role. If you have 25 units with a lot of people perhaps staying at home, you're going to have quite a few deliveries of box trucks coming in and out of there. So I would strongly recommend to have numbers that ascertain to trip generation pre-build as well as box trucks that could be anticipated going into and out of the site.
So, Commissioner, do you want us to provide some preliminary answers to that now, or?
It's up to Kermit, but if you want I think a table is ideal for everyone to understand a little bit clearer, because you have a good table
Yep.
for post-build, not so much on pre-build, just so we can kind of understand. We're going from someone saying that there's not a lot of traffic. We've got members of the public saying there's a ridiculous amount of traffic. So if Kermit has done the research, so if we can get something in a chart, I think that would be advantageous.
Yep, so Commissioner, we are happy to provide a chart for you. I'll have Kermit just answer what he can
Sure.
right now, and then we'll provide additional data for the next
Thank you.
hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the comments. I just want to clarify, when you say chart, are you talking about the trip generation table I provided in Table 3
Yeah,
that
what-
shows the trips for
Yeah,
each peak hour?
Correct, Kermit. Is that table 3 that you're referring to?
Yeah, trip generation table for each of the 3 peak hours, like
Okay,
entry
so is
trips,
that-
exit trips.
Yeah, is that
that includes
post-
everything, by the way, including your Amazon trucks.
That's Amazon trucks, so that's post-build, that's all current traffic.
Right, because
Coming-
currently the site is not, we don't have that driveway. In other words, the existing volume for the driveway is 0. So as far as driveway traffic, that's the total traffic when this is built. How many for the morning peak hour to enter 8 exits.
Okay. So just out of curiosity, how do you determine the amount of Amazon trucks that would go into a facility? Just out of curiosity.
I just based on IT trip menu. Their trip menu, they don't differentiate between the resident traffic or other service traffic. So that's all inclusive. You know, they don't give you, say, what's the percentage of, utility use or delivery.
Okay.
That, I wouldn't say that's an average, over the years. If you say over, nowadays people work at home, probably they have more delivery trucks, marginally change that, but we are talking about 10 to 13, 10 to 15. We even you add 10, 20, 30 vehicles to the driveway, we will still have a favorable level of service. If you want to do that exercise, I certainly can do that, but it will not change. The fact is, Kobe Road is a low volume road, even during peak hours. There's no issue going on as far as traffic capacity, traffic safety. By the way, on the topic of safety, I mentioned that there were 3 accidents. Those 3 accidents were on New Burton Avenue. The accident record for the most recent 3 years shows 0 accident on Kobe Road. And as a result of the comments from the staff, I also look back, in addition to, what if I look at it 6 years as opposed to 3 years? I found 1 accident in 2019. That's probably one of the residents mentioned there was a collision with an animal they pet, and that's the only accident near that intersection right north of where we are. So, you commented on congestion at the driveway and potential cause safety issues. I respectfully disagree with that. To me, based on my analysis, there's no congestion at the driveway because Kobe Road is such a low volume road, because we are generating so little traffic. And also, there's no safety or accident concern on Kobe Road whatsoever, based on the records I have seen. Thank you very much.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, just a Part C, if you will. This would be, I believe this would be for Mr. Cassidy. I think on some of the comments that the town engineer, Steve Sopelek, had concerns with, he felt that even though the traffic count, he was okay with that, but he did feel that there was a concern. I think you had placed a do not park zone, if you will, right outside of that entrance. Can you?
Do not block driveway.
Correct.
Sign
Yeah.
plus.
Can you give us an idea, perhaps for the next meeting, what this actually looks like? I
Sure,
don't
we'll-
think
we'll
you
get-
have a
we'll get
depiction of it.
pictures of examples of
Yeah,
it.
I know it was, kind of put together on short notice, but just having a visual of that, whether it would help or not, would be advantageous to see. I'm good with A, B, and C. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
That wasn't a lot of questions.
Commissioner Moorhurst.
Okay, I'm assuming that when we get back together, the town engineer has a number of pages of comments here and questions. I don't particularly see any of them addressed yet. They may have been in your discussion because I didn't memorize the bullet items.
We've gone through the entire list of comments. We have addressed them, as mentioned. I've only had basically Monday and Tuesday prepared a response letter to all comments, and it has been submitted, but unfortunately submitted today.
Okay,
But
so-
over the past couple of days, we have addressed all the comments. We're more than willing to sit down with staff, confirm we've adequately addressed their concerns.
Commissioner, just for the record, we submitted today 3 items. We submitted a letter from Mr. Cassidy dated today responding to all of the civil engineering related comments.
Mhm.
We also submitted an August 19th letter from Mr. Hua responding to all of the traffic related comments. And then we submitted a revised civil plan set, which is what you saw on the PowerPoint tonight, incorporating all of those revisions into the plans. Of course, we wish we had the opportunity to submit it to the commission in advance, but having received the staff comments only on Friday, we did as much as we could.
Okay, so we'll,
And these are on your, what Andrea is referencing is on your table this evening.
I haven't had time to read them.
Nor have I.
Yeah. Now, specific question. What concerns me a lot is the parking. Looking at your load table on sheet C of 1, kind of weird. The load table, you have columns that say required and provided. Is required by 830G, or is that required by our zoning regulations?
So I believe it's by the R20, that's correct, yes. So when we typically do these zoning tables for 830G, we provide what's required in the underlying zone, which here is the R20. There is no parking standard for 830G because parking numbers does not equate to public health and safety issues. So there is no parking standard for 830G. So we just provide that for the commission's comparison for the R20.
Have you ever seen 2 residents fighting over a parking spot?
I'm sorry, Commissioner?
Have you ever seen 2 residents fighting over a parking spot? That's a safety issue.
You know, Commissioner, and I say this jokingly, we've had this conversation before. I've been doing this for quite a while, and I have yet to see any issues with any of the developments I've worked on, even with this ratio or less with residents fighting over parking. And it goes back to, and I mean this with all due respect, it goes back to speculation. That's a what if you're assuming people are violating the law and fighting over parking. And frankly, and I'm not meaning to interrupt, but we have a ratio here of 1.6 per 2-bedroom unit. The ITE manual, and we'll put this in writing, but the ITE manual, I believe, provides for this type of use. It's 1.4, an average of 1.4 spaces per 2-bedroom unit. But again, you hear 2-bedroom units. A lot of people get 2-bedroom units and they only have 1 car. You have professionals who work at home and have an extra bedroom for guests or for working at home and office. So, and it is the...
Excuse me, let her speak, please.
It is thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is the developer's experience who has similar communities to this that this is more than enough parking.
Well, I don't know if I should say this or not, but assuming that a two-bedroom unit would only have 1 car is speculation on my part.
Commissioner, we have data to back that up, and we can provide that to the commission.
Okay. Visitor parking, there's no accommodations for visitors whatsoever on the property, correct?
I mean, the parking is not designated. I don't believe there's any designation or assignment of the parking spaces, so visitors will park in vacant spots.
So there's no accommodation for visitors. If you've already, well, I don't want to argue.
We can respond to this in
yeah.
more detail, of course, but I understand what you're
A little bit more
getting at.
specific on how you intend to address the parking when you've got 50 bedrooms, not 50 units, 50 bedrooms, and only 4 parking spaces.
Understood.
So in other words, there's no accommodation for overflow parking either. You've got 40 parking spaces, period.
So, Commissioner, we will, again, it's
Okay.
the applicant's interest. I feel like we're beating a little bit of a dead horse. It's the applicant's interest to have sufficient parking. Based on our experience as developers for the last 35 years, this is appropriate for this particular use. And again, we have a similar development that we've compared the parking to, but we will, again, address that for the next hearing.
Okay. On another issue, you only show 4 cars backing up at the traffic light. In the real world, there's been a lot more than 4 cars stopped at that traffic light at times.
So you're talking about the queuing analysis, Commissioner?
Exactly. And that's going to block the driveway if
So-
there's more than 4 cars. Or if there's 2 Amazon trucks, which is longer than a car. There's a lot of, I mean, I don't know, I shouldn't say this, but there's a lot of speculation on the part of the presentation also, if you're going to.
I'm not cutting you off. Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, I'm fine.
Respectfully, Commissioner, we backed that 4-vehicle queuing up with data from the ITE, which is the industry standard for traffic engineering. I'm not the traffic engineer. I'll turn to Kermit for that, just to touch on that, to explain how we got to that 4-car queuing and why we've determined it's sufficient here.
So the way I analyze the queuing, existing queuing and future queuing is based on the signal operation and also the future volumes, right? The software Synchro that generate the level of service or average delays, it also gave me the 95th percentile. In other words, 95% of time. You take 100 samples, the 95th highest is 60 feet highest, like probably it's a weekday afternoon peak hour, and we have 86 feet. So in other words, for vast majority of the occasion, this is sufficient. Well, you say, what about 99%? Probably 99% will be higher. But so what? If it's blocked, you wait. I mean, we are talking about 10 exit vehicles during an hour. Ooh. That is 1 vehicle every 6 minutes. If you go there during the peak hour to count, about average. So you wait for the queue to dissipate. You know, eventually will, because when you have the green light, the queue will dissipate on your approach. It's not a long wait, because the green light, you know, it alternates between approaches, right? So that's the benefit of the traffic signal.
Have you done any on-site traffic counts?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I probably the previous commissioner comments is, what about the existing volume? In the appendices, technical appendices of the traffic study, if you look at figure 1, 2, 3, that's the existing traffic counts. You know, and then we have the no-bill traffic counts. Then we have the trip generation volumes. That's probably the commissioner was referring to. That's figure number 7, trip generation figure. That show you all the trip movements through these 2 intersections during each peak hour. And that's how we got the result in figures 8, 9, and 10, which is the future volume, the total, you know.
So what we can do, Commissioner Mordhorst, and this is also to Commissioner Hussey, who asked the question, we can take those existing counts and volumes and put them in an easier-to-read table so that it's just more digestible for the commission, and we can do that for the next meeting.
And those are actual counts? Those aren't
Yes.
based on formulas or
Yes, that was
ITE
Kermit being on-site.
guidelines or anything?
That's actual counts, right?
What do you mean by tables? It's already in the figure. You want to put those figures, numbers in the figure?
She has the answer.
Yep, we'll discuss it offline, but these are, just to confirm for the record, Kermit, these are actual counts that you
These
completely...
are actual counts. We have those counts. We actually send people out there to do the field. You know, standing there, essentially. Actually, they use cameras, then, you know, read back those numbers.
Okay. Has there been any consideration to put a right turn only sign at the exit to prevent issues with people making left turns while they're waiting for traffic in both directions
So,
on Kobe Road.
so we are going to evaluate that. We also heard, I believe it was Commissioner Hussey asking about a right out only on New Britain Avenue. We're going to look at those configurations offline after the hearing in advance of the next hearing.
Okay. Was there any consideration to making the exit driveway on New Britain Avenue?
Again, we'll evaluate that. My understanding, and Mr. Cassidy can opine on that, we did evaluate that. Do you want to touch on that?
So yeah, we've already looked at this as a possibility. It does involve some kind of reconfiguration of the site slightly. I believe we could possibly accommodate it. A exit only right turn out to New Breton Avenue on the west end of the property, but it involves taking building number 2 and combining it with building number 1 and shifting slight over to the east or to the right. Again, we'll formalize a final opinion on it. We'll go through it with the applicant, see if he's comfortable with it. But it's something we have been talking about internally.
Okay, that's the first question. What about consideration for putting the exit driveway and entrance driveway on New Britain Avenue?
So I got to tell you, when I initially got involved in this project, and it's been quite a while, we have been looking at it for well over a year at this point. We looked at all kinds of different configurations, and I am from the area. Obviously, I work here. I'm here. I don't live in Rocky Hill, but I do work in the general area. I've been here for 36 years, gone through that intersection. Actually was involved in part of the reconfiguration of Kobe Road, because I don't know if you remember what it used to be like, but it was actually a lot tighter and a lot worse. So I'm very familiar with the area, and taking a look at this site, one of the things I did look at was, where do I personally, professionally feel the best place to come out with the driveway? New Britain Avenue, when you look at the queuing at that light at New Britain Avenue, it's far further than you get queuing on Kobe Road. In addition to trying to pull out onto New Britain Avenue with vehicles stopped and vehicles coming down in a westerly direction, to me, was a lot more unsafe. I know that the traffic does back up on Kobe Road. Kermit has identified that we analyzed it for the 95th percentile. So let's talk about 95th percentile. That means 5% of the time it could potentially back up more than 4 vehicles, okay? Realize that the timing cycle on that light is probably 2 minutes. So that's about twice an hour. I would not be surprised if it does back up. That's why, per staff recommendations, we have accommodated a blockout box to not block the intersection and signage. So we're not saying it doesn't. We're identifying it, but still, in my professional opinion, looking at several different options for this property, I felt that going out to Kobe Road was the safest. I thought New Britain Avenue would be a lot more difficult for traffic maneuvers, especially with cars queued at New Britain Avenue during peak times.
Okay.
And I'll have Kermit in our next meeting. We'll talk about queuing on New Britain Avenue based on our queuing analysis.
Just a comment, the address is 1093 New Britain Avenue. It's not
Correct.
Kobe Road. Will there be any on-site management? And if there are any issues within the property, how would they be addressed?
Rackamore Acquisitions is a local company. Their management office is in Rocky Hill. They're not going to have an on-site management company. It's not a big enough development to have an on-site management company. Typically, you find that in the larger developments, such as Montage, Ontario, and then the new one you have going on the side of the State Highway, where you have a lot more units to manage, but there won't be an on-site management company, but they'll be able to get in touch with someone from Rackamore Acquisitions 24/7.
And no on-site maintenance or anything?
No,
Because this is a rental, it isn't a condominium, so.
It's not a condo, it's a rental. They're responsible
different
for
issue.
plowing, keeping up the lawn, keeping up the buildings.
Okay. That's all I have for now, and I got to go through all this new stuff and
Understand,
see what
please.
we have. Thank you.
Commissioner Robbins.
Yes. Just to clarify, this letter we received is in response to traffic comments. But the original traffic study, I don't have it as part of this subdivision application file that we received for this meeting.
So, Commissioner, the original traffic study is at tab 6 of the July 3rd application package.
That was given to us last month.
Oh, it was in last month? It was given last month?
I don't know when town staff,
You received it last.
Okay, so all right, so it wasn't, all right. So I just want to clarify.
yes, but
that.
you are correct. That letter is just responses to the traffic-related staff comments that we received on Friday.
Yep. So and I'm not sure if your comments were they specific to that previous traffic study?
Yes.
So the level analysis that you were speaking and the counts, we didn't see them in there either? Correct. Okay, so that's where I was going with this. It was just trying to find out where that level of service analysis assessment is, to see what the current counts are, what goes from A to B, or what does or doesn't.
So
It's just wanted to take a look at that.
understood. And to be clear, we do have all that data in that traffic study.
Yeah.
I think what Commissioner Hussey was requesting was a more digestible, easier to read table for people who are not engineers or who don't look at this every single day. So we're going to accommodate that for the next hearing.
Okay. The other question I have too is just that in response to concerns about pedestrian and bicycle activity, it says that there's 2 sheets that show pedestrian bicycle volumes were 0 at the intersection during a 6-hour period, 7 to 9 a.m., 4 to 6 p.m. on a weekday, and 11 to 1 p.m. on a Saturday. But then it goes on to say, in February 2024. That's the winner.
Commissioner, where are you reading this from? Is this our supplemental traffic letter?
Is that a good indicator month for the pedestrian and bicycle traffic?
Yep. So I'll turn it over to.
Yeah, Commissioner, that's the time we did the traffic counts, which I received this assignment.
Yeah.
We go out to do the counts, count the vehicles, count the pedestrians, count the bicycle. Obviously, you're right, it is winter, but I'm presented as it is.
Yeah, and Commissioner, to be clear, again, I'm going back to the timing here. We received the comments on Friday. We were trying to provide whatever response we could within a couple of days.
Yeah.
But again, that's the information we had on hand that we could include in our response, but we'll take a look at that and we understand your concern.
Okay. And then the other thing I have, and again, unfortunately, has to do with getting old, is that in the updated responses on the site diagrams, like where you added information about the perk test locations, the perk test data, and so on, it's great. I see it here, but it is so small I cannot read any of the numbers. I have no idea what it says.
I agree 100%. You know, a lot of times, you know, the town wants to reduce scale plans. You know, they're all set up for a 2x3 sheet for text size, and I agree. I'm getting older too, so it makes it a bit difficult for me to read. If you like, I'll gladly give you a full size set of plans.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to generate extra paper, but
I mean, typically we receive 12 half-size and 3 full-size.
yeah, and it's a lot of
After
paper.
review.
The other thing we can do is give you an electronic copy.
And just for the record, Commissioner, we do have electronic copies that we've submitted, but if any of the commissioners would prefer a full-size plan set, you can let Ms. Ricci know. She can contact us.
Yeah, maybe even if you had a
I have
SharePoint site
the
where we could just go
electronic
online and
version.
rather than you having to
So,
email us a umpteen meg file, that if there was just a place we could go online and then we could enlarge it on our computer screen or something.
Commissioner, we actually have a Dropbox file that we've sent Ms. Ricci the link, and I do this with all my applications. We put everything we submit to the town goes into that Dropbox, including tonight's PowerPoint. So Ms. Ricci can certainly, again, I cannot communicate with you, but Ms. Ricci can send that link over to you, and it's accessible to the commission.
Okay. And yeah. Then I just look forward to hearing more at the next meeting. I don't have any additional questions at the moment.
Commissioner Brescia.
Hi. So I just had a question again. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I know Attorney Gomes, you said that a lot of professional people would be there.
Yep.
Renting, and you mentioned first responders. But I'll tell you, as a first responder for 40 years in this town, I would be a bit tenuous in trying to get out in the middle of the night. I might do 3 to 10 calls a night. So I don't know how that figures into your traffic study, but flying out of there and trying to get somewhere, I would be hard-pressed to kind of navigate that area, and especially at peak hours in the morning. That it just seems like it's very congested, and I live that, so I know that. But I don't know how you figure in first responder people exiting and entering there, and they could be as many as 3 to 10 times a day.
Right. So we look at, it's impossible to hone in on the traffic of a particular person in a particular field. I mean, we would have a unlimited number of pages in our traffic study. We're really looking at industry standard counts. We do on-site counts. We look at the industry standards. Again, as Kermit said, and we'll address this again in writing, as Kermit said, we have a relatively low volume area based on the counts and everything that our software has indicated. But again, that data, presumably nationwide, that data that we took takes into account, first responders, physicians who are on call and have to run to the hospital, things like that. So I would presume, and again, Kermit can correct me if I'm wrong, that those situations on average were included in the industry standard data that we've included in our report.
Yeah, no, I just wanted, because you mentioned first responders.
Yes,
so
yes.
I just wanted to make a point there. So the sidewalks going down to crossing, there's no sidewalk, there's no crosswalk there, right? As far as I know, there's no crosswalk on Kobe and New Britain.
There is actually a handicap ramp on the sidewalk and a handicap ramp on the easterly side of Kobe Road at the intersection of Britain Avenue.
But there's no crosswalk.
There's no crosswalk, but there is, I believe there's another handicap pad already at our side, if I remember correctly. Obviously, we'll need to replace that. Obviously, it needs to go to DOT for final approval. So if we're going to have sidewalks, there may be some kind of upgrade required to that to provide a crosswalk.
And are you doing any sidewalks down Kobe Road?
No,
from
there's
there?
not. No, we're not doing anything. There's nothing down Kobe Road to connect to.
Okay. Was there ever a cutout for a road in off of New Britain Avenue to this property?
On our plan?
No, I thought there was a cutout already.
There's a driveway. Yeah, there's a curb
driveway
cut there for the driveway for the existing home.
Is that something that was not considered as being able to use?
Again, it goes back to what Mr. Cassidy said, but I'll let him.
Yeah, again, taking a look at it in this location, if you try to leave that driveway now with the queuing at New Britain Avenue, it's a lot more difficult to leave there than the proposed location we're showing coming out on Kobe Road. Even moving that driveway to the west, my experience has been that the queuing is pretty significant on New Britain Avenue and difficult to get out of.
Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing the rest of the plans.
Yes, and we'll take a look again at the different modes of access, ingress and egress out of the site, including New Britain Avenue curb cut. We'll take a look at that.
You want to go first? Or want me to go?
Good.
While I'm thinking of it.
Go ahead.
Just a comment that at that intersection across, when you come to the end of Kobe Road, across New Britain Avenue, there's a sign that says no pedestrian crossing. So they considered a crosswalk and they decided they would not permit it. I'm assuming it's
Probably
DOT.
there's no signal right now.
Just
There's
a
no
point-
there's
just
no
wanted to point
pedestrian
that
signal.
out.
There's no pedestrian signal, so that's what I'm saying. If we're going to have a crosswalk, it would need to be updated to accommodate. Similar, I mean, we did the same thing, if you recall, when Home 2 Suites went in on Cromwell Avenue. We extended the sidewalks down to France Street. There was no crosswalk there originally. We had to modify it to accommodate that. There's no legal crosswalk there at that point. So we're going to run into a similar situation. Ultimately, it's going to DOT. They'll have to approve it. If they ultimately say we don't want sidewalks along the Britain Avenue, like one of the residents have mentioned, the sidewalk goes away and the potential for a crosswalk goes away. It seems like they did set it up to accommodate because, again, there is a concrete pad there. There's infrastructure over there that can accommodate a crosswalk in the future.
That was it.
I'm going to start light. Can you explain the passive recreation area and the actual recreation area?
So there's a large flat area to the back of the very rear of the property. It's more of a nature area, almost like a conservation easement, where obviously we're not going to have any development. If somebody wants to hike down there, there is potential. It's pretty much cleared right now. Unfortunately, there's someone, a budding property owner, that has a wood cutting operation that they had started on that property, although it wasn't their property. As part of the comments, we had added a note that the wood piles would be removed, but it is a real nice flat area, a very nice nature area. If someone wants to take a hike, there are paths that you can get down there and take a hike. I'm not promoting it, and that with the grade, it is a bit steep, so we can't be ADA compliant. So that's why I'm calling it more of a passive recreation area. We have the area directly behind building number 3, which is a large flat lawn area, where we could, after talking with the developer, possibly accommodate something more active, picnic tables, possibly a small playscape area or a small dog walk area in those areas where it'd be more active recreation from residents of the community. We haven't identified anything in that active recreation area, but we identified that there is a significant large flat area we could do something with.
Can you show us something at the next time of like,
Sure.
how would you envision something there? So we get an idea of what it means?
Yep.
It came out tonight, but I had a question about the landscaping to the west. You show just a couple trees, but the buildings are plain as day to the west, the Campanaro side. A fence was mentioned. I know you're going to address it, but I was wondering if you just go a little further with the screening, knowing that there's been nothing there for all these years, and all of a sudden there's going to be a building right there on the property line. So that's one of the things. I know it was mentioned tonight. It's on your list, but it's on my list too. So.
Yes, understood, Mr.
Going through the sight line, a lot of stuff has been made about the sight line. I had questions, but ultimately it's going to come down to, is there any way that you can just like represent something in pictures?
Yes.
Or renderings, or I know we talked about 4-story buildings and heights and everything else. We've all driven the road. We understand what's going on there, but if you could depict something for us so we could see it in front of us,
Yeah,
that would be great.
I will do that. I actually, again, before this meeting, I was out there and actually sat my truck at that intersection and took a photo up. One thing I found kind of interesting is actually when you're coming up Kobe Road southerly towards that intersection, before you actually get to that curb, there's a point actually further than 390 feet that you can actually see the traffic signal. And what happens is you come around the curve, it actually pushes you out a little bit, so you lose the traffic signal, but you still have a clear sight of our driveway. I think the best thing for me to do is I'll somehow put a visual representation in a picture of where our driveway is with a picture from that intersection, so you can see actually what that line of sight is.
Could you show it with Q cars also?
Yes.
I know how you know how to do that with the computer, so AI is wonderful. You mentioned the traffic light. It's very weird that we have a configuration of that traffic light in this town. We have on the ground lights, we have in the air lights, we have 2 lights, we have 1 light. Can you give us an explanation or have a DOT explanation of why that light was made the way it was?
I'll dig into that. It is interesting because if I recall when they first put it up, they didn't have the signals across the street and they added them.
Everybody thought that it was going to be a crosswalk there because those things were on the ground. Like, well, what are they doing there?
Yeah.
But if you can just take us through with just a one sheet or a DOT explanation of, we have 2 on the ground, we have 2 in the air, and it's. I mean, I can guess why they're there, but an expert
Sure.
explanation of that would be great. I think somewhere on the plans we talked about moving a mirror. I know the neighbor had the mirror.
Yeah,
Are
that
you
was a
guys
comment
gonna-
we're going to respond to. We're not relocating a mirror. The mirror is actually not in front of this property at all. It's probably a good 75 feet down from our corner of the property. The mirror is obviously to improve the sight line for a driveway. This is not something you don't typically find when you have a driveway that comes out on the inside of the curb.
Okay.
Our driveway is coming out on the outside of the curb. Driveways on outside of curbs have much better sight lines. Driveways on inside of curbs have restricted sight lines. I can understand why they have it. There is a type curve there, but we're not touching that mirror at all.
You show snow management to the west. And by looking at some of your plans, it's kind of like your snow management is right on the property line to the west, as well as near a retaining wall and everything else. And I was just wondering, when snow melts, where does that water go? If you can just show that.
Sure.
Or you can depict how that snow management works. And if there's going to be any implications to the neighbor to the west. 'Cause it seems like it's all, your management is all to the west. With retaining wall there and grades there, I have a concern about how that water will shed. I also had a question about all those wood piles back there, but you answered that. Curb cut on New Britain Avenue, I'm assuming you'll take us through all that. In our comments, and I don't know if you answered it because it was on our desk today, the police chief had some concerns about safety in the area. I was wondering if you could address those.
Again, his concern mainly is the queuing at the intersection road driveway. For your entering the apartment, it was recommended that we put the blockout section in the don't block driveway.
So that was
And
the response to the chief?
Well, that was a response in addition to his comment, but again, we'll sit down with staff and see if that adequately addresses their concerns.
I'd like it in writing if I could, please. You can tell us, but I would like it in writing, in part of the response. One of the things that this commission has been adamant about in keeping track of is blight. And we had in our packet renderings, pictures, whatever. And this property has been on our list for a while now. Yes, you have been trying to develop the property since you bought it in 2022, but I was wondering if you could give us a response on why the blight has not been addressed. And yes, you're developing it, but there's also the importance of keeping it up as you try to develop it. So I was wondering if you could address that in your comments. How are you going to handle garbage? I'm assuming dumpsters and.
Yeah, there's 2 dumpsters actually depicted. They don't. They do have it.
I saw, but you're just literally going to. Your management company's going to take it off site, or are you going to have garbage trucks or?
We'll have a garbage service come and pick it up.
Garbage service, okay. West. I'm glad you explained the affordable housing and the astigmatism and all of that other stuff that comes with it. So that was on my list. Lighting. I didn't see a photometric. Can you do a photometric?
Sure, I thought we had included it. Apologize we didn't. We'll just so
I didn't see it. I mean, you may have. I didn't see it.
So again, we're concerned. We're showing concern about not having lighting going on to adjoining properties. Way we set up the lighting on this particular one is it's all internal to that parking lot. So there's no street lights along the frontage. There's no street lights along the back of it. It's all going to be within that parking lot. It consists of 3 poles.
You'll have it on islands and
correct.
LED.
Yes, I'll
low
if
cutoff,
I had
all that
not
other
provided
stuff.
you a photometrics plan, I will provide you a photometrics plan.
That'd be great. Kim, is there such a thing as Rock Hill Police producing a report for accidents that they've responded to versus a Yukon? I'm not sure the difference between the two, and if that's, is there any way that staff can come up with?
We can get that information.
If we can get that information in our packet or into the applicant?
Yes.
That'd be great. You mentioned congestion versus volume. I was wondering, you did explain it, and I think I understand it, but if you can go into more on that. I think I understand it, but I kind of need a one sheet on the definition, the difference between the two, because that will go a long way to understand what's going on in that area. I think that's all I have for right now, but obviously, anybody else have any questions?
I do. Back to the sidewalks. You're proposing the sidewalk on New Britain Ave, and it crosses over to the east, and there's a walk existing on New Britain Ave. You're proposing these 11 units in the rear, but there's no walk accessibility to that intersection. on Colby, because you're not showing any sidewalks coming up to that intersection. Is the expectation of all those tenants, if they wanted to walk up New Britain Ave, to walk through the property to get to the sidewalk?
You bring up a good point. I mean, obviously, if we could take consideration to adding an additional piece of walk for that small section of frontage, our frontage along Kobe, to interconnect with the walk.
Well, I mean, I know you mentioned that it goes to nowhere, but until you build it, it doesn't go to anywhere either.
Good
So
point.
I'm assuming that we would need to continue, have continuity on the property.
We'll take a look at that, Commissioner.
That's all I got.
Commissioner Hussey, yeah, it's another one?
Just a couple quick ones. If you can add some renderings, there's two neighbors that, one especially, right on the corner of Kobe and New Britain Avenue. Looks like their driveway apron is directly across from the entrance exit you're proposing. If you can give a better depiction of how their driveway actually is, because I think I heard from the homeowner that they need to possibly back up into Kobe. So if you can give maybe a longer length of their driveway instead of just a curb cut to kind of give a depiction.
Along the plans?
Of their, correct, of their scenario. And there is a neighbor north of that, Jim, I think you show a curb cut on that as well. If you could do the same on that. If you do decide to go with a entrance/exit on New Britain Avenue, if you can show where the curb cut is for the neighbor to the west. And location proximity to where your exit/entrance could be, that would be appreciated. Only other comment, I noticed that out of the 25, you've only proposed one Type B unit. Any consideration to more Type B units? Since you have 3 handicap spots proposed on your plan, any consideration on more Type B units?
I will double check, but I thought we actually had 2 Type B units, but I'll double check them.
I only saw one, maybe.
Yeah, let me double check.
I only saw one in there.
This one, this one.
Is there 2?
This one here says.
Yeah, Type B.
Building 2 has one and building 3 has one.
Yeah. That's building.
I didn't see it on the overhead shots. I only saw one of them. Well, regardless, if there's 2, if there's any consideration for another. And I think.
We'll take a look at that. We
That's
thought
fine.
there were 2, but
Yep.
we'll confirm
Okay.
that.
In addition to what Chairman Zarilli said with renderings for the property to the west, you've got what appears to be at the highest point a 10-foot retaining wall. So if you can address how you're going to possibly screen it from them. We just don't have a depiction of where their house is in relation to what they would be looking at.
I'll give you an overall plan showing
Overall
all.
plan with their house, how it's shown, if you're doing any bollards, any protection on a 10-foot drop.
Yeah, it's got
probably
top
recommended.
protection, yeah.
So if you can give better renderings of that, that'd be appreciated. All set.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
So we're going to continue this.
Do we want to do the correspondence tonight or the beginning of the next session?
Kim, how do you want to handle correspondence?
Correspondence, I know I did tell Attorney Gomes prior to the meeting that any of the correspondence we received today, she did not receive. Our admin was out today, so she did not receive that, but she has received the majority of the correspondence to date. But she had not received the correspondence from today, and I will get that to her. So
we should.
I don't know if you want us to go through this today. We have a lot of correspondence that was mentioned during the hearing, but we have staff reports, we have letters that people have written. Some of those people did speak this evening. And I guess we do have something coming in from somebody else that was here that didn't get through the email, so.
So do we wait until next time since the applicant has it all, or do we have to read it into the record? What's your
Well, we do
best suggestion?
need to at least note the date and who it's from
Okay.
into the record. So,
I'd rather do that tonight to get those, clear the decks of everything that we have. And that way we can address everything that comes in or came in, I'd rather clear the deck now And just, maybe just address who and when it came
Okay.
in. I don't necessarily think we have to read it, because
Okay.
it's public record, and if anybody wants it, they can have it. I mean, I'm looking for suggestions, but.
Okay, that,
if
I
it's,
can certainly do that. I know the applicant has it, it is in our file, and our packets are put online. The information that was on the table this evening may not be on the website, but that will be put up on the website for our next meeting, so.
I'd just like to acknowledge the people who did write in and just,
Okay.
and the date they wrote in.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the commission needs nothing further from the applicant at this time, right?
I think, we're set, we're going to continue this, but I just want to make sure that they get their fair shake and into the record of who actually wrote in.
Understood, and I mean, to the extent
It
it's
doesn't
worth
mean
anything.
anything, yeah.
Anything submitted into the record is submitted into the record, whether or not it's acknowledged. It's obviously the commission's prerogative to follow its normal
Yeah.
policies, but there's no objection from the applicant either way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, we do have a letter from David Pomberg, environmental specialist land surveyor, dated July 12th, and you may have received this in a previous packet concerning the wetlands, and there's no approval needed for the Wetlands Commission. You do have a interoffice memo from Police Chief Brian Klett. It was dated 7/15/24 concerning the areas of concern. You do have a interoffice memo from Fire Marshal Richard Renstrom dated 7/23/24. He checked the box. I've reviewed the site plan and request and approve this proposal. A memorandum from engineering, Stephen Sopelak, Director of Community Development Services, dated July 17th. Staff comments, it's approximately 3 pages. There is an email. It was sent to our admin, Lynn Witowski, dated July 30th at 11:57 a.m. This was referred to by Attorney Gomes during the presentation from Jacob Knowlton, Community Development Planner at Capital Region Council of Governments. To myself, Kim Ritchie from Martin Gugliotti, in an email dated July 31, 2024 at 7:49 a.m. He lives at 26 Andover Drive. We have an email to Lynn Witowski, our admin, from Kristen Veneziano, dated August 15th, 5:45 p.m. With an attached 2-page letter and an email. We have an email to Lynn Witowski from Adriana Oresco, and an email August 18th of this year at 9:59 p.m. with a letter that's just over 1 page. We have a letter from Marissa Romano, an email dated August 18th at 10:04 p.m. with an accompanying letter. We have correspondence and email to myself from Jenny Marco dated August 19th, 10:34 a.m. She's at 150 Kobe Road. We have a approximately 2-page, 1.5-page letter from An Vu, 160 Kobe Road. An email dated August 19th, 12:26 p.m. from Melissa Pelletier. I am not sure of the address. We have an email dated today, August 21st, 9:16 a.m. from Alicia Cornelio. Not sure of the address. And we have today an email to myself from Joseph DeRiso, dated today at 12:04 p.m. I'm once again unsure of the address.
So is it safe to say that if the name was not mentioned, that we don't have it, or there are more that came in today that we don't have?
The only thing I would ask is that Lynn Witowski, our admin, was out today, and as you know, as you noted, some of those letters went directly to her, so I don't know what was on her computer.
Okay,
So,
just want to verify.
okay. I checked at I'd say probably 6 p.m. today. It was the last time I checked.
So procedurally, if we continue this, what is the next, when is the next meeting that we can continue this for?
Our next meeting is the third Wednesday in September. Sorry about that. Happen to know the date.
So I think I need a motion from one of the commissioners to continue this public meeting.
And what purpose?
Right.
Why are we continuing?
Motion to continue to the third Wednesday of
September
September.
September 18th.
September 18th, which is our next regular meeting, for the purposes of the applicant responding to the questions from the commission that they received tonight that they weren't able to respond to, submit the documents that were requested, the photometrics, the various graphics that were asked for. And the other purpose is so that the commissioners who received a lot of information tonight can review them and be prepared for the next session. That cover it all?
Public comments, public questions. You said commissioners, not public.
Well, they answered the public questions
No,
tonight.
they're going to formulate a response. They're going to formulate a
Okay,
response.
and the public comments also.
Now, we may have received additional public comment today. I don't know.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So just for the public's edification, this part of the meeting is over now. We have to go on to other business. You're welcome to stay. But this part of the meeting is over. Thank you for coming.
Drive safely.
Moving on to agenda item number 2. Is there any public comment outside of this application? We still have a meeting going on, so if you could take it outside, that'd be great.
Go ahead.
Hi, excuse me.
Hello.
Excuse me, we still have a meeting that's going on. So we will continue this till September 18th.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
6:30.
Is there any public comment outside of this application or anything on the agenda tonight?
Nobody's left.
Seeing none, can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Agenda item A is been,
Five A.
not needed.
5A.
So 6A, zoning enforcement.
I don't have his report, and he's on vacation.
Okay.
That's fine. That's great.
We did receive a list in our packet. Is there any comment from the commissioners for the zoning enforcement officer on anything on that list?
You did? You did get it?
Hearing none. Minor modifications.
We have 2 minor modifications, but the plans, because of the agenda, the plans are in the office. So one was for a transformer at the gas station on the site of the former Scuba Shack property. And then one was for the vessel application. They did some grading changes, and it requires, Steve Soplek, as town engineer, has approved that, and it requires an agreement between them and the abutting property owner. We're waiting for that agreement to be signed.
Question about that vessel property. While they're constructing, is there a reason why the fire hydrant is going all day with water running down the street all day?
That I don't know.
They
I
have a
cannot-
construction
I cannot answer you.
They have a construction apparatus, so I'm assuming it's the meter, it's a meter for their construction site, so water can be used for dust control.
Happening.
I don't know who's paying that bill, but it's going down the sewer the entire day. That could be looked at, because it actually, during these heavy rains, there were runoff there. There was runoff, sorry, my English. Plan Implementation Committee,
Nothing right now.
nothing. Affordable Housing Committee,
They are meeting, they're going to be meeting in September, early September.
any legislation?
Not in session.
No.
They're
We
not
do,
messing anything up now?
Nope.
we do have, and this isn't legislation, that we do have an updated, the hazardous mitigation plan. That's, I attached for your information. Just so you know.
Okay.
Any communications?
I've also enclosed the land use training guidelines, once again, because keep in mind, we still have to keep up with that. For your information, Capital Region Guide to quick builds for complete streets, because we do have a complete streets policy, and we're looking to do some low-cost improvements with paints and/or barrels, or cones, what have you, to see if certain things are worthwhile doing in real life, you know, actually building curbs and islands for traffic calming. We do have notices about 699 West Street with respect to some minor changes at some of the cell towers.
On the, just a comment, the next Capital Region or CROG Planning and Zoning Commission is, I have to double check the date. I think that's on September 18th also, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to attend that. And that's going to be a public hearing on their new plan of conservation and development for the region.
We'll check the date.
Oh, I know the
Oh,
date, I
that
just
is-
don't
that
have
is
it
the
with
date?
me today.
Okay.
I didn't realize it
Okay.
probably competes with that.
I think that meeting's Thursday, September 19th. CROG.
Okay, well, yeah, I just off the top of my head, I thought it was the 18th, but yeah, it's usually on a Tuesday or Thursday, so that's good. Okay, never mind.
Any bills?
No.
Can I get a motion?
Anybody? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.